is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now.
Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it.
Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now.
Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, and here we go, everybody. Welcome to episode number 265 of Sports Cards Live. It's Saturday night, April the 5th, 2025. My name is Jeremy Lee, and I will be back here again on the channel tomorrow for the Fanatics Collect weekly auction-ending watch party, where we are now covering all four major North American sports. And guys, if you are looking to add a grail to your collection, check out Fund Your Cards. Visit fundyourcards.com, and they can help you use your own cards to purchase your grail, as they have recently done for me. And guys, also please check out Mint Inc., mintinc.ca, Canada's leading hobby brand LCS. They had an awesome hockey card day today. It was hockey card day in Canada today, and they did a great job over at Mint Inc. Check them out. They have online shopping, grading, breaks, worldwide shipping on their products. Check out mintinc.ca, guys. And also GP Sports Cards. Grant Paterson of GP Sports Cards will be joining us later tonight. He offers a wide variety of hockey breaks right here on YouTube, actually. Kind of one of the last remaining group breakers that really isn't associated with any platform per se. It's kind of neat. Grant does a great job. You can also check out his storefront, Total Sports Cards and Collectibles, in the greater Toronto area. And guys, if you are looking to kind of clean up your messy spreadsheets when it comes to fantasy sports, check out rolling-insights.com. Ben Hostler has been on the show about 4 times now. He'll be back at the end of the month. Check out rolling-insights.com, guys, to get all the statistics, box score information that you need to run your fantasy, and to even look at player performance as it relates to sports cards. And Chronosio, guys, wearing the shirt yet again, the Chronosio shirt. Chronosio is the ultimate card inventory manager. It's a state-of-the-art tool with AI that helps complete all the fields when you are listing your cards on eBay. 90% accuracy. They've already sold millions of cards with their integration with eBay since 2017. If you only have 100 cards, maybe not for you. But if you've got 1,000, 50,000, even 250,000 cards in your inventory, Chronosio is really the only choice for you. Check out home.chronosio, spelt as such, .com. And if you'd like to sell your cards on eBay, but you don't want to do it yourself, you'd like the pros to handle it for you, and you would like me to be your rep, your point of contact for Slab Sharks, hit me up in the DMs. Hit me up on at jeremy@slabsharks.com. Instagram DMs work as well. Send me a message any way you want to get a hold of me. That's great. And I will help you get your cards listed on eBay, and we will help get you some cash to spend on more cards. Guys, appreciate that and all the great response so far. I got to thank all the people who've stepped forward and all my Slab Sharks clients so far. Guys, these shows are available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you do listen to your podcast. Please follow and subscribe for free. Leave a rating or review on your podcast platform. And as always, guys, thank you to our loyal viewers and listeners for your ongoing support. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel or podcast, please take a moment and do so. And as always, your comments and your questions, they will be in play. We got a great show tonight. But before we get to that, let's bring out my co-host, our co-host, the man from Santa Cruz, California, Mr. Joe Poirot is back from the beach. Joe, here we go again. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jay Lee. Happy Saturday night to you, and hello, everybody in the chat.
Happy Saturday to you as well. So, couple things right out of the gate here. First of all, I mean, if you're keeping track, if you follow hockey at all, even if you don't, you've probably heard that Alexander Ovechkin has now closed in and equaled Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record in the NHL with 894. He is now tied with Gretzky, one away from owning that record permanently. And one of the coolest things that happened was last night, he could have scored an empty netter. All his teammates said, "Do you want the puck?" And he said, "No, I don't want the puck." He wants to take the record over, break the record with a goal where there's actually a goalie in the net. And I love that. I think that's just awesome. So I'm looking forward to seeing him do it. It's obviously going to be this season at this point. So that's pretty cool. Are you, Joe, down in California? And, are you seeing anything about this? Has it hit your airwaves down there?
A little bit. I mean, it's a massive record. So, we've heard there's, the Sharks are 45 minutes away. So we hear a lot about Macklin Celebrini, whose father is actually a trainer for the Warriors. So there's that extra layer for me. But yeah, I mean, who hasn't heard about the Ovi record? And it's pretty fantastic. I anytime something like that happens, I think it speaks both to the person who's had the record all the years, and also to obviously the emerging sport and the person who's taking it over.
Yeah, exactly. It is exciting, and he's actually a pretty classy guy. He's a little rough around the edges, but he's classy. It's been fun to see, so for sure. Now, guys, next Saturday, no show, by the way, just giving everybody a heads up. So next Saturday, April the 12th, there will be no Sports Cards Live. I'll be tending to other personal things that evening, but I just wanted to give everybody the heads up on that. I do apologize, but we'll be back the weekend after on the 19th, and then there'll be no show again on the 26th, as I will be traveling to the Toronto Sport Card Expo, and then we'll be back pretty much consistently right up until the National at the end of July, early August. So let's say hi to the crowd. Joe, we got Stukes, Baseball Cards and Curiosities, with a YouTube channel of the same name. What's up, Stukes? Likes the crew we have lined up for tonight. Laura is here. Good evening to you. Yeah, it's Saturday night, right? It's the place to be, guys. Jacob Dahl is here. What's up, Jacob? The Pursuit. How are you, Chris? Welcome to the show. Chris C., good evening to you. Robert Scott. Linda's first. What's going on? Jeff McMahon is here. Hockey 99. Good evening. Nick Chen. Hockey wants to know, do I have any tricks to get around tariffs for Canadian collectors? Talk to your lawyers and accountants. That's all I got for you. Talk to your advisors. That's all I got. Steve Martin, the solution is to never buy or sell anything. What's up, Orlando? Good to see you, buddy. Welcome to the show. Trade everything. Steve Martin, hello to you. Curmudgeon is here. Rich Klein will be joining us in about 8 minutes. What's going on? Rich, I emailed you the link. Rich. You should have it to your Sabre email, I believe, but I will try to send it to you again. Let me just copy that, Rich. I need to know where to send it. I'm going to send it to you on Instagram in a few minutes here. Yankees fan, what's going on? 3 hours of brilliance. Mark Santucci is here. Daniel A. Yitz is here. Good evening. Hey, Surfer Joe, says Stukes. Barry R. Rich is there now. I didn't even need to send it to him. Okay, good. Jake Dahl, welcome again. Called Shot Cards, hello to you. Hodges gave the video a like. Hello, Hodges. Welcome to the show. Daniel A says Gretzky is the all-time points leader with his assists alone. That is one thing that's worth mentioning, is that while Ovechkin is going to be the all-time goals leader, he's still about 1,300 points behind Wayne Gretzky, which is just remarkable. But I don't want to take anything away from Ovi. What he has done is remarkable as well. Skeppy is present. Good to see you. David Marone, good to see you, Dave. Celebrini has a bright future. I think he does too. Strongsville is coming up next weekend, everybody. And we will be talking about Strongsville tonight for sure. Webo 2. Will Ovechkin hit 50 goals by the end of the season? Be the first only member of the 900 goal. I think will he get to 900? He needs 6 more. He might be able to do it. The Cardboard Corner, good evening. More hockey cards, please. Welcome to the show. Good to see you. Colin Murray, hello. More hockey cards, says Lemieux is still better than Gretzky. Sorry. It's just false, but I respect the opinion. Barry R., the best way to spend a Saturday night. Appreciate that so much. Mookie Chilson in the house says Uncle Rich would pass on an empty net goal also. I can see Rich laughing in the back room right now. Gordon Morrison, welcome to the show. We got everybody out tonight. Joe, we're off to a strong start already. Well, what do you think, Joe? Any last minute thoughts before we bring Mr. Rich Klein on? Rich, are you ready to go? He's ready to go. I can see you, but I can't hear you, buddy. You give me the thumbs up. Let's see a thumbs up from Rich. He's giving me the good old thumbs up. Producer Louie from the Hockey Cards Gong Show is with us. What's up, Louie? Always good to see you, buddy. All right, guys. Well, Joe, I think we can jump in and bring Rich on. What do you think?
Let's jump on in. I think you and Rich have some history over the years, eh?
Well, we've that was very Canadian of you, eh?
Trying.
Well, here, we'll bring him on and we'll talk about it right now. What is up, Rich?
You
Welcome
tell me.
back.
I tell you, I have not been on since episode number 40. So it's been a while.
Episode number 40. That must have, was that in 2020, Rich?
Yes, 2020. That's when we were having the IG conversation. It's been 5 years.
Holy moly. I find that hard to believe because you've been on, I think, a couple times. Is it just, I don't even.
Oh, I think I did a couple guests, but I mean, I think I did one guest when you brought people in for one of your anniversary shows, but I'm talking about a full-blown chat. But I know I definitely did an anniversary show because I won a prize. I won a prize that night too.
Yeah, that was the 3-year anniversary show of Sports Cards Live, which is 2 years ago this month. Actually, the 5-year anniversary of this channel happens in 11 days from now, from the very first video that ever appeared on the channel. We're 11 days away from the 5-year anniversary. We did that fun one at the 3-year. I was glad you were able to come on then. But Rich, welcome back to the Sports Cards Live platform here, buddy. It's good to have you back.
I'm excited to be live. I'm wearing my Dallas Stars t-shirt that they gave me at one of the radio stations here has what they call ticket stock, and the Stars were set up and they were giving away t-shirts. So I figured for tonight a hockey appropriate shirt on National Hockey Card Day, and I went to my local store and they gave me some packs. And it was
good
fun.
Stuff. Good. Well, say hi to Joe. I don't know if you met.
I don't think I've ever met Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Rich. Good to meet you. I associate you like years back with Saturday Morning, and your voice brings back the early moments of getting involved in listening to hobby content. So it's great to have you here. Great to hear your voice, and nice to meet you.
It's great to be here. And I tell you, Jeremy, as my mentor and friend, Dr. Jim Beckett, has always said, Jeremy is the gold standard of online hosts. So I'm always honored whenever I can be on with him.
Well, I appreciate that, Rich. It's really mine and Joe and mine's pleasure and honor to have you here. You are an industry stalwart. You've been around a long time. Always nice. And I think when Joe was mentioning Saturday mornings, that's Hobby Hotline, which you still partake in. Actually, today's episode, Dr. Beckett was on with John Newman. They had a nice show this morning. I caught a bit of it this afternoon, and good. You're still doing that content, and you still work at ComC. Is that right?
That is correct. It's fun, and I saw the note about tariffs, and ComC made an announcement about tariffs, and that's so far above me on the food chain. I can't comment on why decisions are made, but they were actually pretty clear. I read that. I said there were very clear reasons why they're doing what they're doing. They actually put percents and numbers in, and explained it very clearly. And I was glad to see that.
Yeah, I saw Barry Ma, who runs the Canadian office, is out there responding to some comments and taking questions. And I think Barry's doing a great job as best as he can to deal with. There's going to be some disappointed customers and that, but hey, you just gotta be patient and wait for things to maybe go back to normal. So, but kudos to Barry for always being such a great hobbyist and someone who likes to take care of the people that do business with ComC and the Canadian operations. But Rich, before we get into the topic, and you wanted to talk about the need to be adaptable in this hobby. Before we do that, I want to go to some more comments because we got a lot of people here that are saying hello. Chad Shipper, what's up, Chad? Marco Gomez is here. Yeah. Michael Stone will be at Strongsville. That's great to hear. Yes, 5 years. Linda's first. Thank you, Pursuit. Thank you, Chris, for that. Josh Jerez, what's up, Josh? Good to see you. Michael Stone, always like seeing Mr. Michael Stone as well. Skeppy says, why you got to take so long to get Rich on the show again? That's a great question. I feel that's my bad for sure. So Rich, there you go. You've been missed here on Sports Cards Live. Mike Double V, yes, great to have Uncle Rich on board. Hello to Andrew Deutsch. Good to see you. Very nice. GC says, Joey P for hobby president. I love it. And Laura says, what does one get a host for a 5-year anniversary? A Joe Jackson card? Nah, there we go. And Stukes will be at your show, Rich. Very good.
Yes, that may be his first show he's ever set up at, or really close, and it's exciting. And I think that's a good way to lead in. We were talking about adaptability. You and I were having a conversation. And the show I'm running now for my synagogue's Brotherhood is half the size it was pre-pandemic. We're no longer in the building we were previously in. It was previously a 45-table show. We had when I say door prizes, we gave away bags of cards with a prize slip inside. So everybody got a prize. And sometimes the prize was get more bags of cards. And I could have set up dealer tables for myself. I made some money that way. The room now fits 21 tables. So I don't do the bags of cards anymore. I don't have the bandwidth. And I've transitioned it to be more of I call it a neighborhood card show. It's not the one where the Pelican case people, there are a couple vendors I make sure to have, but I've set up the show to be a collector-friendly show, value boxes, when I say lower end cards, you're not going to find a 52 mantle, but at the last show, somebody sold a 68 Nolan Ryan rookie. Somebody else sold a pre-war Eddie Cicotte e-card. Somebody else did $5,000 on Monday with their merchandise. There is some serious coin that walks into that room. But I've set it up to be more of a friendly, relaxed show instead of a lot of the shows of today, because that's what I want to adapt it into. And that's part of what I mean by adapting.
Yeah, and so why did the show go from being over 40 tables to down to where you've pushed into a different room, a different hall? What happened there?
Well, I use a room in the synagogue.
Yeah.
We had been renting a building. It used to be a gym in a strip mall pre-pandemic. Well, during the pandemic, the lease was going to run out and nobody's using it. And that was, I heard, up to $15,000 a month basically being spent for nothing. So
you had to adapt because it just didn't, because of COVID.
Yes.
So now you're in a, so I mean, it's interesting. You're now doing a 21 table card show. It's a pretty small show, but I'm sure it's nice. But how are the vendors and the guests adapting themselves? Never mind you as the organizer. You adapted. You did what you did. Now you just run the show, right? And but what about the attendees and the vendors? How are they adapting? Number one, to half of them no longer being able to set up, and the attendees having that much more limited selection. How are they doing? Because I mean, the stories I'm hearing is that shows are getting bigger, not smaller. So this is a very unique case, I think. But I'm curious how the local, loyal attendees are responding.
Well, they have some faith in me. They know that I bring them what to see. I had one vendor who came in from Florida because his significant other needed $30,000 of dental work. And the way the show worked, he had extra tables on Monday. And he told me he did more money at that show than he ever did at any of Dallas card shows.
Wow.
That he ever set up at.
Okay.
So the people who come in know what they're going to get. And I'm very blunt. I tell people, this is not your Pelican case show. This is not the show where everybody's going to have showcases and do comps. This is a collector-based show. And so I'm trying to draw X amount of people, but not X plus Y plus Z amount of people. And not having to pay for the room lets me keep all the costs reasonable, including to the attendees and the vendors. Now, if I had to pay for the room, I'd have to do things very differently, but not having to pay for the room since it's an official synagogue function. It's in our new building, which is a smaller but really nice retrofitted building for what we do. It's actually in the same room we hold our services in.
Okay, interesting. So, I mean, Rich, you've been in the hobby a long time, and there's been a lot of adapting going on. So let's expand outside of the show that you're doing and talk about, just how us three and everybody watching, listening, what are you seeing? You've been in this hobby a long time, Rich.
1979, I did my first show. 1977, I started subscribing to Sports Collectors Digest and the Trader Speaks. So yeah, I'm older than dirt.
Yeah, but is that when you started in the hobby in 79?
75 is really when I started, but I got really active in 77.
What got you started in collecting?
I've always had the collecting gene, and I went from stamps to coins to baseball cards. And baseball cards was the most natural thing for me to be in. I had more interest in baseball cards. It's a living, breathing hobby. Things are based, and I can see Joe nodding his head. It's based on how you're doing on the field or how you've done on the field. And I was a bit of a historian. I've always been a bit of a baseball historian. And so I love the old cards. I love the new cards. I love the game. It was a more natural fit for my collecting gene than stamps or coins, but I always had the collecting gene in me, I'm convinced. My father had been what they call a vest pocket stamp and coin dealer before he got married in the 40s and 50s. Wow. So I must have gotten that gene from him.
But I'm curious. I don't know if we've ever asked Joe this question on a live stream, at least maybe not since 2020. But Joe, how about you? How did you get started in the hobby? What's your earliest memory?
Yeah, well, opening packs, but even before that, I mean, it sounds like a story out of some kind of old-fashioned book. But at the bus stop, I remember friends of mine having the 75 Topps minis, and there was a few of those that were Oakland A's cards, and I really wanted them. And I was collecting the 76 cards out of packs at that point. The local liquor store down the street had 76 Topps, and you were trying to collect all the Oakland A's cards as in my neighborhood. So anyway, doing trades like that. But Rich, I'm sure you remember this. Before there were card shows, and there was a card shop. Sorry, before there were card shops, a lot of times you'd find cards in antique stores, and you'd find them in these old boxes, and some of them would be ripped and torn, and some would be quite nice. And that's actually some of my earliest memories of not just opening packs, but kind of getting something that had been around a while, 60s cards. If I'd go visit my dad who lived up in Sacramento, we'd go to antique shops, and I'd just tool around in there and find 5 or 10 cards that were, they'd price them like nickel, dime, or quarter, depending on the name. So that's one of my memories, sort of the first kind of vintage approach to the hobby.
Well, I was very fortunate living in North New Jersey. We actually had some card stores as early as 74, 75.
Wow.
And we had shows by 75, 76. So I was starting to get into it early on, and I was actually doing more vintage than new at the shows, because new you could buy the packs. So I would go to the card shows and I'd buy older cards just because I liked older cards. I as I said, I have a historian streak in me. So I would buy older cards. I remember one show I was thrilled. I bought the Tinker Evans and Chance T206 combo for $5.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah. Great buy.
Yes, I don't have those cards anymore. If I did, they're a little more than $5 each now.
Yeah. Rich, we got a question here. A great question from Skeppy in the chat. He says, Rich has seen decades of changes in the hobby, past, present, or future. What has been Rich's toughest challenge specific to you in the hobby, Rich?
I think my toughest challenge is understanding what I can't do. When I started in the 70s, a lot of cards were very price accessible. They're not price accessible anymore. So I have to do with whatever my budget allows me to do. And so I can't just go and buy T206s at 50 cents and $1 anymore, or $3 or $4 or $5, if that was inflation. They're a lot more than that. So the toughest thing to do is understand that I'm dealing with the memories of what I used to own, but be happy with what I do get nowadays. And what I do get nowadays, and you hear Dr. Beckett and I talk about this on his value, on his podcast, is we talk a lot about we're in the same value boxes. And we're looking for things that we think that are undervalued within the value boxes. And we both have some natural advantages of having done price guides for a long time and seeing cards. So we have some natural advantages over some other people doing that. But there are certain things, I get certain vendors I know who I have longer term relationships than even Dr. Beckett, because they used to do my show when I was running a monthly show. So they give me a really nice discount in their value boxes, which are already very fairly priced.
Right.
And so I can play with certain things, and every once in a while I do really well, and usually I do fairly well. And when we were talking at the last show, Dr. Jim, myself, and Shane Zager, whose parents used to be who used to set up at the National, very pleasant people, wonderful family. When people buy new cards nowadays, a lot of times they don't know if they can win. When we're in the value boxes, we can't lose.
Right. That's awesome. Because you know exactly what you're coming away with. That's interesting. And it comes back to the whole, your topic of tonight, which is adapting to an ever-changing landscape of this hobby. And really, we've seen huge changes over the past, 10, 15 years. And, group breaking really had a lot to do with it. Now, repack is all the rage. Repacks are all the rage. And I don't know if it's driving the cost of cards up or down or neither. That I think a lot of people will argue up, and I'm sure that's likely quite fair. But Rich, with all your experience in meandering your way through this hobby on the budget that you've had, like you just mentioned, you had to adapt from buying cards that you wanted, that you could afford at one point in time, and now they're not in your budget because they've gone up so much in price. But you said something super important back there in my mind, which was that you still are able to find cards that make you happy and that you enjoy collecting. How do you feel about that? Like this is a deep question, Rich, but I'm going to ask it. How do you feel that you maybe can't afford the cards that you wanted back in the day, or that you could afford back in the day, and now you can't, so you've had to find other ways? Do you feel like sad about that, or no? Are you happy with what you're finding, and you're still able to have the hobby enhance your general lifestyle because you love the cards you're buying?
I'm going to answer your deep question with an even deeper answer.
Please.
I'm a little older than you, and I have a form of arthritis. Yes, just a tad. And I have a form of arthritis there's only like 3 or 4 types of exercising I can do: walking, running, swimming. I used to love to play basketball. We had a courtyard where I could play basketball at Beckett, at lunchtime and whatever. I'm not at the age where I can do that anymore, but I really can't do that now. I can't do that. I can't play basketball. Even shooting a basketball can be difficult for me. I understand. I love to walk in the Willow Bend Mall, and the mall is in its dying days as a mall, because they're also adapting, and they're going to repurpose the mall in the very near future. They have all their permits and they have everything set up for what they're going to have to do. But I enjoy walking in the mall. And today I was at the mall, and there were a ton of walkers at the mall because it wasn't a very pleasant day outside in Texas. It's in the 40s tonight. It's going to be like, there'll be places in Texas in April that will have freezes tonight.
We were in the 50s here today. Up
we were
here
warmer than we were, Jeremy.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to happen.
Right.
So I've adapted on that. And if I can adapt on that, I can certainly adapt to what I do on cards. Like, for example, I'm still blessed where people, I don't do the bags of cards, but people still give us cards for donations for the Brotherhood. I go through them, and like I tell people, one of the things I do is I have a 5.5-year-old, he's almost 6 now, great nephew, who battled childhood cancer. Thank goodness he got through it. A Major League Baseball player visited him while he was in the hospital, and they were comparing muscles, and he lives in Jacksonville. And I tell everybody, look, I'm pulling Trevor Lawrence cards for him. He comes before me or you on that. And if I see a Trevor Lawrence card he doesn't have, he gets it.
Yeah.
The player who saw him was Daniel Murphy, who was a really good major leaguer, was part of the Giants coach, and whose names I can't think, the New York Giants coach, and he also coached at Jacksonville. And he won a couple Super Bowls with the Giants, and his name I'm drawing a complete blank on, so I apologize. But he's part of that group. And so I pull him cards. And now his father said, his grandfather said, they were over at his house today. My brother-in-law says he fell in love with the Eagles during the Super Bowl. Well, I will be pulling him Eagles cards. He comes before all of us on that. And I have joy in giving him cards. He's 5 years old. He loves his cards. And
Tom Coughlin. We got Chris C, Mookie Chilson.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I like how you answer that question. You can adapt to not being able to play your favorite sports by doing other things to get exercise and stay fit, right? Which is really important. And if you can do that, you can adapt to the changing landscape of the hobby. I think we all go through some of these things, like even with what's going on in the world right now, with all the uncertainty. You know, I had a 25-year professional career. I don't have that anymore. When I did that, I knew that I was going to get a paycheck every second week or whatever, however often I was getting paid. And I knew that I could, buy some cards. And if my checking account went down pretty low, I knew that it was only a matter of no more than 14 days until it was going to get filled up again. And I could, buy more cards or whatever I had to pay for. And now I'm not in that position. So I have to be a lot more careful with what I'm buying. And even though I recently did pull the trigger on a humongous card for me, the cash outlay towards that card is extremely minimal. So I had been saying, just for transparency in that, I have said in previous episodes talking about it, that it was going to be like all cards, no cash, but there will be a little bit of cash going towards it because I'm having trouble giving up some of the cards that I thought I might have to give up, right? So, but all that said, we all go through changes in life and circumstances, and how we adapt to all those things, whether it's physical or health related, financial related, relationship related. The funny thing though, Rich, is that when we're going through tough times and adversity in areas that are not hobby related, we can always come back to the hobby, or at least our collections and our good close friends within the hobby to, kind of have that break from the stresses of life. So,
well, today I did go to my very local card store to get some packs for that, but there was also a show about 30 minutes away, a little bit of adventure driving there because the highway I took, there was under construction and zigzagging, and I did see 2 wrecks on my way to the show, so that wasn't really a fun trip. It was, it was raining and a little bit of fog, and the show was in a really nice location for a show.
Nice.
And I walked in, I saw one of my dealer friends, and then after 15 minutes, I walked around a little. I went back and said, yes, I'm leaving. And he laughed. He says, I walked around the room. I knew you wouldn't be here very long. And it was for a show of that size, a little steep to get in, but the proceeds were also to help the Elks Club and their charitable goods. And the promoter, I've put it in my newsletter, and we'll talk about that in a minute or so. And I think he was debating about whether to tell somebody to give me tell the nice young ladies at the front to give me a pass. And I said, this is for a charitable cause, right? Yep. Okay. Let me give you your money. Making sure he understood that I knew that it was for a good cause.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was happy with that. And it was a nice hobby morning. And I got that. And I was home at 12 and I left at 9:30. I mean, that's 3 solid hours of hobby stuff, and that's good for a Saturday morning.
It's great. Yeah, for sure. Especially when you're immersed in this hobby, like you and I, Joe, and pretty much everyone else who's with us right now are. I wanted to put it to Joe for a sec too. We all, like I say, and Rich says, we all go through changes in life. And do you find, Joe, that the hobby and the cards, like, regardless if you're at a point where you can afford to be buying cards or not, does the hobby provide you, and do your cards provide you with that? I kind of want to tie this into the whole adapting thing, but it's like adapting to your circumstances, whatever they might be. Does the hobby provide you with that mental break from other things? And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, it absolutely does. And I mean, I could answer this in a lot of ways, but most immediately, my version of, the dollar box in not having a card store or a show nearby is my own shoe boxes that I've, thrown things into for years and years and don't always remember what's in there. So sometimes there's a little treasure hunting. So this morning I actually pulled one out. It was, maybe like 2019 to 2022 basketball cards. And I was looking for Jimmy Butler because the Warriors just got Jimmy Butler. And, now that he's a Golden State Warrior, he's got a more significant importance to my collection. I want to see what I have. So that was kind of my fun way to kind of do a hobby thing on a Saturday morning, just rifling through and seeing what I could find. But in a bigger context, Jay Lee, I mean, for me, in terms of like adapting, I would say that especially in the time of COVID, the card community offered, an opportunity to make connections with people, to have conversations, and to feel like you were, still in society, albeit a virtual society. And you had a lot to do with that, with your show and other content creators. And I think that is one area that's kind of complemented the collecting part of it, is having more fraternity with fellow collectors, because for many, many years, I lived a pretty isolated collecting life, and just kind of me and eBay and the sellers I knew. So that's a form of evolution, I guess you could say, just embracing a community.
What do you think of that, Rich? I mean, you've been so connected in the hobby for so long. Did the pandemic help enhance your experience, Rich? And I mean, it's kind of, I guess, somewhat rhetorical, because I don't know if I would have met you if it wasn't for the well, it wasn't necessarily the pandemic, but just the proliferation of, the necessity to have social interactions with other people online, because we couldn't go out so much. How did that enhance or affect your experiences, Rich?
To be honest, it really didn't as much, because Texas is and I'm going to use the word, not the way it's intended to be politically, it's a more liberal state when it comes to doing things than a lot of places. My buddy Kyle Robertson started shows in June of 2020. He was, they were very careful, but they were very aggressive about setting up shows. That for a while, the Dallas Card Show was the national card show. And so we only were going without shows for maybe 3-4 months. The stores, there were a couple local stores that you sort of had to know secret codes to get in the door, and they knew me and I knew them. As long as I wore my mask to get into the store, it was fine. So it was different, but I was probably talking to more people during the pandemic. Our mutual friend Leighton Sheldon, who does Leighton's Loft, and I think he does Hobby Therapy now as his new podcast. He has for years has talked about building community. You have a wonderful community, with your show every week. People come to see and hear what you do. And so I think for a lot of people, it really enhanced the community. And for a good, consistent webcaster like you, like my friend Bo Spencer Thompson, who did 1 million Tubs cards, for people like that who have done a really good job of keeping their shows going and bringing good content every day or every week or every month, it builds a community. And the more community you build, the better off you are. I mean, I haven't set up at a show because I've sold out 3 times in 2 years now. So I haven't set up at a show for a while. But I mean, there was one show where a guy heard my voice, and Dr. Beckett's like 10 feet away looking at value boxes. And the guy says, "Oh, I know your voice. You're on Dr. Beckett's podcast." I said, "Well, do you want to meet him?" And he's like the director of a Fort Worth theater. And they had a lovely chat. And, it was fun to connect names to faces. And a lot of people come up to tell me, "I really liked your episode at the last Dallas Card Show when we did an episode about sales tax, out of all things. when they added sales tax to the price of an autograph ticket, and one of my friends complained about that, we did an episode about, hey, they are perfectly within their rights to add the sales tax. They're not charging you. They're just they're doing what they need to do to pay the state of Texas. And then I'm walking the show, and the guy I know, I didn't know what he did. He thanked me for that. He said, "Thank you for that episode. I work in the tax department. It is so hard to explain to people what the two of you did in 10 minutes."
Right. Joe, you got something to jump in with?
No, I mean, I just think it's cool that you could just suddenly bump into Dr. Beckett. That's a good morning, a nice happenstance. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot. It makes sense to me, Rich, with your already established communities that the pandemic might have not been that. But I live in Santa Cruz, California. We've had, in the 30 plus years I've lived here, we've had 2 card shops, and they each lasted about maybe 7 to 10 years, and they didn't overlap. And when they were here, I think one was called the Dugout and the other was called the Clubhouse. It was great, because at the very least you had the card shop owner who you could go in and chop it up with a little bit about what was coming out or what he had coming into the store. But when those shops weren't open, there really wasn't any community. I mean, maybe Blowout, but I wasn't ever really that into the Blowout chats. So it's great that you have a living, breathing community that you've been proximate to all these years.
Joe, to answer your thing, we are the home of the Triple Card family of stores. And in one of their recent things, they talked about some of their stores they're opening, including one in Singapore. Now, yeah, send me to Singapore. I'll manage that store. Get me out of the country. That's a joke. But he has like up to 15, 16 total stores. He has fixed he had worked in his family had done a fireworks business. He's adapted what he's learned from his family's fireworks business with all the stores they had selling fireworks to do franchising basically for sports cards. So he has solved what had always been a tough Rubik's Cube in this business, how to franchise.
And I think I saw today or yesterday that Tom Brady's Card Vault chain of stores now becoming a chain. They're moving outside of the home state into New Jersey, I believe, with a new store. I don't know if it's franchising or just corporate owned. I'm assuming corporate owned at this point. What do you think, Rich?
I will also tell you that they have some stores, or at least 1 or 2 in Louisiana, because when I sit with my friend Jerica, who's Kyle's right-hand woman, I usually try to sit with her for maybe an hour every Dallas card show, because it's fun to learn what's going on, and I get a really good feel for meeting dealers. I actually meet a bunch of dealers, and I'm not promoting myself. It's really good to see some of the inner workings. And and we're talking, and the guy who was doing the show was the manager of one of the stores that Mr. Brady co-owns, and they're in Louisiana. So they're also working on the franchising, and the fact that Mr. Brady is a friend of Mr. Rubin of Fanatics, they're probably going to have a leg up on getting their franchising done too.
Yeah. And allocation at all the right? Yeah. Here's something that just popped into my mind when it comes to like adaptability and the way the hobby is evolving. For many, many years, there was the Beckett Industry Summit and even before that, I believe there was the one that happened in Hawaii. You'll know the gentleman's name who ran that. Kit Young. And then we had the Beckett Industry Summit, and then we had the Mint Collective for a few years, and now we don't really have an event that I'm aware of that is gonna take the place of those. The Mint Collective was a card show and I don't know how to really put it, but a professional, a corporate type of event. And now moving forward, I don't know if there's anything like that in the works. Yeah, you have Fanatics Fest, but that's a completely different thing. Do you think, Rich, are we going to see another Beckett Industry Summit type of event, Mint Collective type of thing?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jeremy. Okay. We will someday. Card companies are still doing, Topps and Upper Deck are still doing their dealer summits. So there are still things, we just don't have a centralized place right now. That, I think, is a very important thing for, all the manufacturers and dealers and hobby people to be able to go to. I know Dr. Beckett loved when he went to the Las Vegas event, because you were bopping into people that you would never think should be in the same room together, and they were all coexisting. There is room for that. Again, the trick is, how do you make it where it's sustainable and either profitable, or you understand what you're going to lose and you budget that into what you do for the event.
Yeah.
So it's one of the other. When Kit Young started the Hawaii thing in the 1980s, there was a card show attached to that too, because Kit was a dealer. Kit's
Right.
a great guy.
Yeah.
I've known him 45 years, so I don't. But his family had a bank. He had that advantage of having a bankroll behind him. And the first thing he did in the hobby was run the market on 55 tops double headers, out of all things. A very interesting thing to run the market on. And then he eventually figured out how to, make his business sustainable.
Right.
And he's done a great job with that. And he's a really, really solid person. And I'm glad I know him, and I'm glad he's a friend. And
good. So Tops has their event and Upper Deck has their event. They're really meant more for like industry and card shop owners, distributors, that sort of thing. But there isn't anything out there right now that is more for the hobbyist that wants to, go to a sort of an industry type conference. But maybe we'll get there. Leighton's in the back. We're going to bring Leighton on in just a minute. I want to go to some comments before we bring Leighton on, Rich. So let's do that, guys. First of all, hello to Chad Shipper. Happy Saturday. Found treasures hanging loose. What's going on? Michael Stone said shows are a great way to learn. Setting up at a show, even a better way to learn. Couldn't agree more. 1956 Tops guy hanging out with us on a Saturday night. What's going on, Matthew? Foul Ball. What's going on, Foul Ball? Triple V Peeps is here. Josh Jarris wants to know, is there a Sports Cards Live Discord? I might have set one up years ago, but I haven't been into it for years. So not really, I think, is the right answer to that. Dan from Dan's Vintage, who will be joining us shortly, says the small local shows are the grassroots of the hobby. I hear people saying the LCS is the grassroots of the hobby, so maybe it's a combination of both. Chris C says, I love small shows like Rich mentioned, not into ultra modern shiny stuff. I like to see collections from passionate collectors, regardless of value. Viewing cards as currency is secondary to me, to be honest. Matthew here said, I credit 1989 Topps, Donruss, and Upper Deck with teaching me how to read. This is the best hobby ever. Sam Hill, Saturday night sports card talk live in the palm of our hands. What a time that we live in, no doubt. And Josh Jarris said earlier, it's conversations and questions like this that makes me love this show. And that was the one on, how do you feel when you have a change in circumstance? Pastor Craig's Vintage Cards. What's going on, Pastor Craig? Junk Wax Museum is here. Pastor Craig here said, YouTube has been an evolution for me in collecting. I was isolated for years with my collecting, except for a few shows a year. So it's nice to know that, social media has those very beneficial aspects to it. Mark Hoyle, good evening. And David Chase, good evening to you as well. All right. Let's bring on Leighton Sheldon, everybody. What do you think, Rich? You ready for Leighton?
I've known Leighton for years. He's a really good guy. I'm happy to be on with him. I'm honored to be on with Leighton.
And there he is, Mr. Leighton Sheldon from Just Collect, from Trading Card Therapy Podcast, and also a co-host from the Vintage Spotlight Podcast, which dropped its 10th episode just yesterday and today. Leighton, welcome back. How are you? We missed you last week.
Well, I've got a haircut from the other day, so I have a little less hair than the Vintage Spotlight, but more hair still than you, Jeremy.
Hey, it's funny, guys. We were recording the Vintage Spotlight on Tuesday. I think it was on. Did we record on Wednesday?
Wednesday.
We recorded on Wednesday, Leighton and I, and our guest was Leon Lucky, who is the owner of the Net54Baseball.com message board community. He's a legend in the hobby, Leon Lucky, and. To kick it off, I think I even said it made the final cut. Leighton's hair was like everywhere. And I said, Leighton, I just want to know what is going on with your helmet tonight, and me and Leon are both bald and probably a little bit envious of all that of all that salad he's got up there, but it was a lot of fun. So guys, please check that out. And also check out the ticker right now. If you are not aware, Leighton is the owner of Just Collect and Vintage Breaks. You can follow them on Instagram at Leighton_Sheldon, Just_Collect. And of course, his podcast, Trading Card Therapy, and the podcast that him and I run together, which is called the Vintage Spotlight. Leighton, what's I don't know if you've caught much of what we've been talking about. We've been talking about adapting to changing circumstances in the hobby. You're a business owner in the hobby. When I present that topic to you, what kind of issues or experiences go through your head where you've had to really adapt to sweeping changes, let's say?
Well, first thing I want to do is say thanks for having me on, Jeremy. Good to see you, Joe. And Rich, it's great to see you. We haven't connected in a little bit, so it's really nice to do that on here. You know, as far as changes, Jeremy, I mean, listen, it's far and wide, right? You know, but if we had a talk, because I think I caught the tail end of the card show discussion. I mean, those have changed a lot, right? I remember being, and I don't know the exact age, call it 16, 18, something like that. If you didn't sell cards at the Howell Flea Market card show, I was idle for like 6 weeks. There was no eBay. There was no, meetup. There was no trade night. If I was lucky, my mom would let me go across town to play softball at my buddy Adam's place, and we'd have a trading session after. So think about how much that's changed. And right, it's not 100 years ago. It feels like it. And so maybe we can kind of maybe lead off there and see what everyone else thinks. But to me, I still love card shows, but they've changed wildly. Because people have a lot more resources to move their material than they ever have before.
That's a really good point, right? The card shows are not the only venue or channel with which we can now trade, buy, and sell. There's so many. You mentioned eBay. Rich is, works with ComC, which is ComC is as synonymous with the hobby as any other platform seems to be at this point. Tons of cards on there and always. But you mentioned, how the card show was the place to go. I remember in the 80s, like when I was in grade school, me and my best friend, we would get on the bus, well before having driver. I'm talking when we were like 13, 14 years old. We get on the bus, we take the bus downtown to the comic store, which had a little card shop in the back. The comic store was called Book Fair. The card shop was called Abdi Cards. It's a legendary card shop up here in Canada. And we would go hang out in this store for hours on end on Saturday afternoon, and that's where that's where I started buying. I remember putting together the '84 Fleer baseball set, but I was doing it I was buying team sets, like team set. They broke it down into. I had to buy the Orioles, then I had to buy the Royals, and I buy the Mets, and I buy all the teams one at a time to put a set together for like $2.25 for this team, the $8. Oh my gosh, $8 for whichever team it was at the time because of the star players. But that was the card shop. That was the card shop hangout. Joe, did you have a card, like you mentioned, in 30 years in Santa Cruz, 2 card shops? Did you ever have a card shop that you hung out with? And I'm going to ask you the same question, Rich. Where did you hang out in the 70s? But we'll go to you first, Joe.
Yeah. So, I grew up in a college town, Berkeley, California, and there was one, along with multiple comic shops. Comics were kind of the thing in the 70s in Berkeley. But there was one single card store. It was a little hole in the wall just off the campus, off of Telegraph Avenue, if anybody knows Berkeley, and it was called King's. And it was a New Yorker guy, Dennis King, had moved out from, I don't know what part of New York, but he had a massive collection. He kept them in these like filing cabinets that he would slide out. And I would go there, maybe 2 or 3 times a week when I was anywhere from maybe like 11 to 14. That was sort of the window of time. And I remember my first really big trade. I was a Pete Rose fan, believe it or not. And I had gone to a couple shows at that point. There was one at the Cow Palace in San Francisco that we would go to. And I had somehow acquired a pretty beat up 53 Mickey Mantle, which was, a pretty big card, but it had a coffee stain on it. and I really wanted a Pete Rose rookie card, and they were so hard to find. And so anyway, I traded with Dennis, who was sort of tutored me and a friend or two who were kind of just getting into the vintage world back then. And I traded, and I don't know if in hindsight it was probably like a 1.5 mantle for maybe like a 5 Rose, high number, the Pete. So I don't know, maybe it wasn't that bad of a trade, but for many years I regretted that, especially when Pete got more negative press around the gambling. But in hindsight, it was just kind of all beautiful memories and a magical place. I mean, when you're a kid and you go into a shop that has that kind of depth in terms of what the inventory is, it's really exciting, and you learn a lot.
For sure. No, I appreciate you sharing those memories. How about you, Rich? In the late 70s, where were you hanging out to get that?
Well, I was in college, so I would buy a couple collections each year in college in the late 70s. So, I mean, it really helped. I mean, I bought really good collections when I was in college. And there were a lot of shows in New York City. I would just take the train downtown to the shows. And I'm going to diverge for a second. Joe, Dennis King used to come to all the nationals.
Okay.
So I would see him at the Mark McRae table booth with Ted Zandik, the late Ted Dandicus, and other people. And it was always and he was great.
Yeah.
So, and he was still trucking along the last time I saw him. So yeah, he's a really good guy. So I'm glad your first experience with a store owner was with a very positive person.
That's so awesome, Rich. Thanks for mentioning that, because he was really gracious and knowledgeable. And he took us to a few local card stores, my buddy and I, and just a fantastic entry point. And I didn't know that he got out all that much, but it makes sense that he did, because he had a vast inventory.
Well, I don't know how he got out that much, but he went to the National, which is, the one to go to. And in the 80s, I started hanging out. They had been in a flea market, but then they ended up with a true neighborhood card store. My friends Hans Jubelt and Henry R. Davis, and they owned a little store in a corner in Garfield, New Jersey. And it truly was a neighborhood store. It was not anything fancy. I mean, it was literally the type of store that you love to go into, because they had a coffee pot. It was like a hot stove. It was a fun place to hang out and talk to hobbyists. And my friend Gary Sipos, who runs the Garfield Card Show, there's a bunch of people who go to that show, and they call themselves the Garfield Coffee Clatch. And a lot of the people I would see at H&H Hobbies in Garfield now still go to Gary's show, and they're the Coffee Clatch. And so it was a lot of fun trading. We weren't even trying to make money. We were actually just trying to figure out who needs what where. And it was so much fun. And my favorite story of this, and this was one of the stories where I'll pat myself on the back. We had people who would buy stuff and then just flip it to me. I pay them a little more. They were very happy. Guy comes to me. He bought these at a garage sale for $20. I looked and I said, let me make a phone call. And I called my dear friend Lou Lipset up. And I start hearing 200, and he's hearing the call 200, 300, 500. He bought 20 press pins. His $50 thing, and I ended up giving him, after Lou gave me the check and I kept a little for myself as the finder's fee for doing better, he got $2,800 for his $50 investment. He was you don't screw around with your friends at the I could have screwed around, and word would have gotten out. No, you do the right thing to your friends. And you say, we're hanging out. And from that point on, it was like, okay, Rich, I paid 12, give me 15 for this. Okay, fine. I mean, from that point on, I was getting calls every week. Okay, meet me here. I got more stuff for you. And so I was getting stuff every week because they knew I was setting up at Mike Gordon's Parsippany show. So they were always feeding me stuff too. It was really great that we had a friend relationship, but we also had a business relationship. And that's the best type of relationships. Leighton, you're very good at that too, at setting those up. And by the way, there was a great question in the comments, and I know I haven't gotten a chance to really talk to you, but your car had a little set to a few weeks ago. Are you all the way back, or are there still some after effects?
I'm very happy to be here, Rich. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, Laura wanted to know how the injury was, Leighton. But you're here. Everything you're looking good. It's great. It's great to be back into the
Leighton,
swing
are
of
you in
things.
Chantilly this weekend?
No, I have my son. However, I'm literally bidding in 2 auctions. I'm about to place a bid in SEP because they have an individual timer lot per auction item versus Love of the Game, which is the whole auction has to go 15 minutes before they would end the auction. So that won't end until like 3 a.m. And then the Duke game's in the second half. So there's a lot of action going on. And of course, we got Saturday night with Jeremy and the gang. So, it's good to be alive in the hobby today, Rich.
Yes, yes, it is. And I'm glad to see you all. It's 10 o'clock Central Time. And even though I could go for a while, Jeremy's got a lot more guests scheduled. So I thank everybody in the chat for their great comments and their great thoughts. Joe, it's good meeting you. Leighton, it's good seeing you. We need to chat at some point. Yeah, Jeremy, let's not go another 5 years without a solo appearance.
We won't, Rich. We won't. It's good to see you, buddy. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you to Rich for coming on. We do have Dan from Dan's Vintage Baseball Collection in the back room. We're going to bring Dan on in just a minute or two. I want to do 2 things before we bring Dan on. The first one is, Leighton, I want to ask you, you missed the episode last week where we talked about consolidation and consolidation stories. I didn't set you up for this, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if you have a consolidation story that you are willing to share that comes to mind. And I'm using more words than I need to right now because I want you to maybe find something in that memory of yours. Any thoughts on that? Did you catch any part of the episode that you want to speak to? But what are you thinking when it comes to consolidation? Have you ever gone through it, or even your clients that might be going through it? What are your thoughts on it in general? Using cards to acquire other cards, particularly ones that's otherwise out of reach.
Great question, a great set of questions, Jeremy. And I think that you're talking about a question maybe you asked a little bit ago and how to connect it all together. Let's talk about how things have changed and now weave in the question you just asked. So when I was a kid, or when we were kids, the way you would consolidate, and this is how it was for me. I'm the oldest of 4. There was no money allowance for cards. I got an allowance to mow the lawn, et cetera. And so I put all that money into the cards. The point is, so when I would consolidate, I would literally prepare for the card store or the Englishtown flea market or eventually card shows. Hey, I have $783 a book. I'll do $125. They're like, I'm like, and then you would figure out maybe I wouldn't be able to sell it, but I could then trade that batch for 2 items. My point is, I didn't have any money, but the Beckett was my friend. So I tried to figure out a way to take all the cards I didn't care about and get something for them. And you didn't always get something for them at first, but of course that taught me a lot of lessons. And if you fast forward to the changes of today, I mean, a company like you worked with, Jeremy, and I know countless others have, whether it be Fund Your Cards or frankly other people as well, have gone out now and made the process you couldn't do that. I would maybe go to my father, when I was a kid, and if I was lucky, he wouldn't go like this. What are you talking about? You need $100 to buy baseball cards. What? Put that in the stock market. When in 27 years, you'll thank me. I'm like, that sounds terrible. I don't want to do that. So I think that there's not something in particular, Jeremy. For me, it's more of the memories, those core memories of taking cards in volume and then making them come back to me in less, in terms of whether it be an autographed item, because I typically didn't buy those. At best, I would trade for them. Of course, this is pre-authentication, so I have plenty of bad stuff in my collection. And as far as the way it goes presently, whether it be it's myself, other companies, I just think that there's so many wonderful ways that even if you don't want to use anyone, you could go to a card show if you have the money to float and say, you know what, wow, I just spent $5,000 and now I'm going to liquidate. I'm going to send some stuff off to Fanatics. I'm going to give an item or 2 to my boys at REA and Heritage. I might sell something to my friend Leighton. And all of a sudden, I was out $5,000 for 4 days. But when I was 15, you'd be out $4,000. I mean, first of all, I wasn't out that. I wouldn't buy an item like that. But $400 or $500 for 5 weeks, I would be nervous. And so it's changed a lot in that way, Jeremy.
I used to come home from the card shop in my teenage years, and I would have to literally smuggle the cards into the house past my mother so she wouldn't know what I spent my money on because it was a waste. And now, she's like, oh, well, you knew you were onto something back then. I mean, this is in the early mid 80s there. Okay, well, I appreciate that, Leighton. Just wanted to get that continuity for you with the last episode. A couple of comments here we're going to run through, and then we're going to bring Dan on, you guys. I'm excited to have Dan on. He's been active in the chat for quite some time. But David Chase says, Vintage Spotlight is one of my favorite shows on YouTube. Wow, that's nice to hear, Leighton. We need it to be weekly. Yeah, I appreciate the. Go ahead.
Listen, Jeremy, I tell you what, if we can get a hair guy and a makeup guy for free, we'll do it weekly. How about that?
We'll do it weekly. Jeff Hart, what's going on, Jeff? Good to see you. Turp Enforcer. Stuke says Abdi was awesome. They also opened up a store in Brainerd, Minnesota. And someone asks later, we'll get to that. Clemente Clefio, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Mookie Chilson says we should really start over now for Theo, now that he's joined us in the chat. So, guys, we're just going to start this thing over again. I kid, of course. Mark Santucci in the 70s, Dairy Queen, Music Den, and the Nanuet Mall were where he would hang out.
Oh, sure.
Curmudgeon, I remember Abdi cards in the late 80s and 90s. What does Abdi stand for? It stands for, I think, Adam, Barry, and Dale. Adam recently passed away. He was always at the Toronto Expo, and Barry and Dale were brothers that ran the shop for many, many years in its various locations and cities. And it was funny. I told you my best friend, I used to go there, and Dale was kind of the more extroverted. They were both introverts, but he was a bit more extroverted. Barry was very, very quiet and somewhat intimidating to us young punks. And we used to call them Sir and Dale. Barry was just Sir. We would Sir and Dale. It was just fun memories for us. It's just such an inside joke for myself. Not a joke, but a memory. Good times. Rage is in the house, everybody. Welcome to the show, Rage. Rock Latex says Burbank Coins and Sports Cards was my weekend hangout beginning in 1987. Yes, Rob Veras was running the shop back then. Wow. And Clemente Collector. Oh, did you just say something, Leighton?
No,
sorry. And then, sorry about that. And then Clemente Collector says Dan is chomping at the bit. I think we're going to use that to bring Dan on the show. Dan, you good to go?
Yeah.
Let's welcome Dan Lynch for the very first time on the screen. His name's been there several times, but Dan, welcome to the show. How are you? And please say hello to the fellas.
I'm doing great. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
And you brought me on with my friend Leighton, which is, soft landing for me. So we're all good.
Dan, super excited you're on.
It was an easy sort of lineup for me. Sometimes when I'm planning these episodes with multiple guests, I kind of have to really think about the order because Joe and I like having the overlap. It's nice. It provides more interaction for the guests with other people. And I thought this is perfect. I'm going to put Dan on in between and with Leighton and Mikey Singer, who kind of runs the Strongsville Card Show with Steve Menzie. I thought it'd be a perfect mix for you, Dan. And you said that to me in the DMs today. I said, I know that I thought I had you. It was maybe one of the easiest episodes for me to schedule.
Yeah.
But listen, I want to bring you on because you reached out to me and you said, hey, are you going to be talking about Strongsville? And I said, well, if you want to come on, we're going to talk about it. I'm happy to. It's something that I'm going to have FOMO about not being there. I've never been. I'd really like to go. But Dan, why don't you kick us off? First of all, again, it's great to have you on the show. We met. I think I met you at the. I feel like I met you at the National
last year at the Thursday night get together. Yes.
Right. Yes.
In fact,
okay.
I think you and Leighton were next to each other at the time.
Could be. Okay. Yeah. Great stuff. So tell us. Why don't you kick off this Strongsville conversation for us? Unless there's anything else you want to mention that we've been talking about so far, you're welcome to do that. But Strongsville coming up next weekend. You're part of planning a trade night. Kick it off. Go ahead.
Well, I do want to say, big fan of Joe. We've never talked, but love your thoughtful comments on here, and I think you're doing a terrific job. So just wanted to say hi to Joe.
I appreciate that.
So I went last year. It was the first time that I'd ever been to the show, but I'd known about it for a few years. I know Ryan Nolan had gone to it like maybe 5 years ago and did a video about it. And it was, to me, it was like the sort of, vintage wonderland, so to speak, where it was just vintage cards, which ended up being pretty much true. I mean, it's like 95% vintage. So last year there was a whole contingent of YouTube content creators who did like, a Friday night social. And then we did, lunches and dinners and hangouts and whatever. And it became kind of a big deal. And then this year we expect it to be even bigger. So I became a member of For Collectors in the interim. And Theo and John came up with the idea for a vintage trade night. So we're doing that on Saturday night. And you'll when Mikey comes on, we'll talk about how the show itself has been incredibly supportive. We've also managed to get several sponsors for the event, so I'll talk through the details of it, but that's really where we are. So I'm really excited about it. I'm going as a buyer, but I'm also going as a media pass person, which is cool, but also helping to run the Saturday night vintage trade night. Has there ever been a vintage trade night before, Leighton?
Well, I've only gone to Strongsville once before as well, Dan. That was last year.
Well, not at Strongsville, but anywhere.
I don't know.
I don't think so, Dan. I mean, that's what I was going to say, is that I love the angle on a trade night, and I'm curious to hear, how it falls out at the end of the day, how the night is. And I wonder, is there going to be much trading going on? Or is it going to be like a modern trade night where you walk into the room and it's a bunch of people with their cards spread out on tables, a lot of young people at these trade nights? I've never heard of a vintage trade night, so I'm really curious to hear how it goes. And if nothing else, I'm sure you'll all have a great time because you'll all be together in a room, sitting down. You're not all going to be racing to the different vendor tables to see who's got what for sale. You're going to be able to, well, maybe you will be running from table to table to see what different people have out on spread. But I think the social aspect of it is going to be something that I'm going to miss. I would love to be there. How did you mentioned that the four collectors group kind of came up with the idea, but how did you guys go from idea to actually executing and making it happen? What were some of the key events that had to occur for you guys?
Well, the hotel, I think this, the hotel ballroom used to host the show. And then last year, for the first time, they moved it over to an ice rink, which is literally next door to the hotel. And so that made the ballroom available on Saturday. So we had to get in touch with the people from the Best Western, set up the ballroom, set up, how much we're going to do this and that. We obviously had to get sponsors, which we were very fortunate to be able to do. And then we started communicating and coordinating with the show themselves. And they've been, fantastic. I know, Steve, and obviously Mikey's going to be on the show later on. They've just been incredibly easy to deal with. So it kind of just, it's coordination work on our end, but also, consistently having people help us from the other side. So to me, so far, it's been fantastic. The question is, how many people are going to be there? I mean, we got 100 YouTube people, so I'm hoping that that's a minimum. But we have 250 free guest grab bags for people when they come in, pack of cards, there's door prizes, the business cards of all the sponsors. We're gonna have tables set up. So there's been a lot of planning going on. It's been planning going on for probably 6 months, really intense for 2 to 3 months. So we talk about the vintage versus modern kind of pressures out there in the hobby, and some people are firmly in one camp, some are in the other, and many of us, myself included, are we run the gamut. But I kind of feel like this vintage trade night at Strongsville next weekend, it's I don't know, is there any, if this is just a big success and everyone has a great time, there's deals being done, it's kind of a feather in the cap maybe to the vintage crew, because the trade night in my mind, Dan, I do associate it with modern, ultra modern type of cards. It's just kind of where my head goes when I think about them. And now I'm thinking, well, okay,
this is the vintage segment of the hobby. And I know there's crossover and all that, but this is a vintage themed trade night. It's kind of saying, hang on, all you modern, ultra modern collectors and hobbyists. With the vintage is still a serious, segment to be contended with. Yeah. Like, hey, we're fighting back. We're showing that we are still here. It's not all modern and ultra modern. So kudos for that. I wish I could be there. Leighton, I have to think you'll be in Strongsville. Leighton, are you going to be attending the event or you're not?
I'll be in Strongsville, but now I feel like I'm going to be having to change my flight to attend this massive exclusive vintage trade night, first ever. Because if not, I'm going to be hearing about it. I should have been there. So we'll see. But I will definitely be in Strongsville. And kudos to you, Dan, and everyone else who was, kind of part of the team. Really exciting.
It is exciting. And if I could just throw one thing to kind of unpack maybe your curiosity around this and excitement, Jay Lee, maybe it's because, and I don't want to stereotype the vintage collectors, but most vintage collectors I know, like once something comes into their collection, it's not necessarily so easy to let it go. It's like they acquired it for a reason. So when you think of trade night, ultra modern, you think of people getting in and out of things, a little more, transaction-y. Whereas, but that's going to be the thing I want to hear reported back on from people that attend this trade night is what kind of deals were going down. What was the nature of, the types of things people were trading, and if you can get to motivations and how frequently it was happening, and how much was just people appreciating each other's cards and saying, hey, that's really cool. That's nice that you brought that 57 binder or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Joe makes two very good points. One of which is that, it's tough. And I'm bringing a box of cards and a display case, and it's tough to go through and figure out which cards I'm ready to give up. And that sort of plays into what you were talking about last week with the consolidation. I worked at a local card show here and got rid of a couple of big cards to be able to have the funds to go make some purchases, but also to be able to have some inventory for the trade night. So it's going to be interesting. I should say last year's Friday, we're going to have a social on Friday also, which is expected to be more than 100 people. It was about 50 last year. But there was trading and selling of cards going on at that event last year. So yeah, there's definitely a social element to it, but cards will move. I can guarantee you the cards will move.
And I kind of go ahead, Joe. Sorry, go.
No, I'm good.
You're done.
Yeah.
I know that you've got the Burbank show, you got the Dallas show, you've got the Expo, obviously the National, these other big these big shows that bring people in, and they'll have trade nights. I wonder if we will see a vintage trade night pop up alongside any of these other shows. Now, I've never been to the Dallas show. My perception is that it's mostly modern, but I kind of hope I'm wrong on that. Burbank show, I've been to the Burbank show a couple times. It's certainly modern heavy, but there's a lot of vintage there too. I kind of wonder if what you guys are doing, Dan, will start a trend of vintage themed focused trade nights, or will they continue to just be kind of mixed in with the other cards at other card shows? Now, Strongsville's a unique case because Strongsville is a real vintage themed show. And I don't know if that's by design or not. Can you elaborate on that, Dan? Is it by design that it's mostly vintage or what?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that I Steve and Mikey were on an interview on Four Collectors a couple months ago, and they talked about the whole legacy of the show and maintaining the legacy of the show, having, the same dealers consistently from year to year with very little turnover. So it's the fact that it's vintage, it's just kind of, I think, just kind of came out of the original idea for the show. But what, in terms of the trade night, the logistics of it set up a very unique scenario where it's easy to do it because of the hotel having the ballroom literally 200 feet from the location of the show makes it like you can just leave the show, go right to the hotel. Plus, so many people are staying in the hotel, including myself and probably Leighton. So like if we were to do a trade night at the Philly show, like I don't even know where we would be able to do it based on the logistics of where the Philly show takes place. So it's kind of a uniquely lucky, essentially, scenario where you can set up a trade night where it's literally right at your feet.
Yeah, the Philly show's a great one that would have been, I should have mentioned alongside Dallas and Burbank, because what a great show. I did have the pleasure of being at that show back in September, and what an amazing show and venue and everything. The guys running it, I loved the experience. Leighton, what do you think about this, vintage trade night? Do you think that that's something that has some legs under it? Could there be a vintage themed trade night at the National, or a section? I know the National has brought trade nights internally. They're running the trade nights now. Could you see there being a vintage component to it? What do you think? What do you think of that idea?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I could definitely see it. I do agree with Dan, though, that it's not just the interests of the folks. Logistically, just happens to line up very, very well. And he's right about the Philly show. Unfortunately, not only is it challenging us to figure out where you would hold it, but even if you pick the location, it's just not that easy for people to walk across the street, because the hotels are literally scattered, miles apart in some cases from each other. But I think for the National, in particular in Chicago, yeah, listen, I would love, it doesn't have to be a large volume of people. It could just be 20 people or 60 people or 30 people getting together for, an informal, doesn't have to be in a ballroom, right? At the same time, I would love to see something like what Dan is doing with the gang next week in Strongsville exist at the National this year, and then build upon it from there. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. To me, it doesn't necessarily have to be trade night. I wonder, this is another question for you, Dan, and for the Four Collectors crew, is this, does it have to be trade night? And I'm not saying rebrand or anything. I'm just curious, are you going for are you hoping the event is a bunch of trades happening? It's nice to have, because what I see as ideal is a social event where we're all together in a room. There's no pressure. The servers don't want you to get out so they can turn over their tables. You kind of have the space reserved, and you're socializing. It's like the YouTube get together that the whole community does at the National. Maybe you're putting some cards out, maybe you're not. Another thing to consider is that a lot of the vendors that go to trade nights, they don't bring their cards with them because they leave them in the show, locked up in their showcases and their body bags and all that sort of thing. So, are you guys really hoping that it's a full out trade night, or is this a social event where you're welcome to bring your cards, put them out, and maybe get some deals get done?
Well, I think that's a great point, because it is the concept is that it's going to be a hybrid situation. It's free admission, but there's going to be free pizza. It's going to be a social event, probably first and foremost. But the social event, like it's going to be on Friday night, is going to be more just straight up, have some drinks and catch up. But this is going to be more have a slice of pizza, go in the other room, talk about cards, meet people, maybe see some cards. The trades may be trades, this card for that card, or this group of cards for that card. But it's also potential for trading dollar bills for cards. That's a possibility. But I feel like the social aspect of it is probably the number one aspect. So in that sense, I think you make an excellent point, Jeremy. And yeah, what are our thoughts about it? If it's a success, we'd like to do it every year. If it's a success, we'd like to do it in other venues. We're scattered across the country. John's from Portland, Theo's from Pittsburgh, I'm from New York, Sammy's from New York, Caesar is from Los Angeles. So we're all over the country, and so we could do these things, I think, in other locations, and that's sort of the plan, the long-term plan.
Yeah, great plan. Just creating the social environment for our like-minded fellow hobbyists to gather and really build on these relationships that we've largely built virtually, and continue to build new ones. And we are fortunate that we do gather at card shows every so often. Again, I'm not going to be at Strongsville. I'm going to get there one of these years. I would really like to. Leighton, and Joe, don't you wish you and I were going to Strongsville next weekend? I mean, my gosh.
There feels like there's a groundswell. I was looking at Midlife Sports Cards. Greg was putting out some content, kind of priming the pump for all of that. And I think I saw Mookie in there mentioning, it really can just be a wonderful social opportunity. And if a few deals get done, great. Or maybe in some instances, you talk about a card that you didn't bring and you make a plan to make a deal later, because as we know, vintage collectors, they're not always going to bring out their T206, red Cobb PSA 4. That's at home. But if they have an opportunity to, somehow involve that with a Gaudy Ruth that they would need, maybe something will happen down the line. So it's a lot of opportunity to talk. Oh, look at you. Channeling. And the other thing, this is a curiosity, and I don't want to stereotype. I haven't been to too many shows, and I haven't been to shows that advertise themselves as well, that are known to be characterized by a stronger contingent of vintage collectors and sellers. But I'm curious what Leighton and Dan think about the idea that vintage card sellers sometimes have their prices set kind of high and or not too flexible. Is that your experience? And I'm not saying that with any negativity at all, other than just that's sort of anecdotally what I've heard at times is, some really nice cards, but the prices were pretty steep. Any thoughts on that from the panel?
Let's start with you guys down there. Who wants to go? Dan, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, I yes. Is it correct that sometimes vintage dealers have their prices high? Yes. Do vintage dealers negotiate? Yes. And part of the fun of going to a show is to grind it through each table and figure out which card is a good deal, which card is not. Which is the eye appeal better than makes it to worthwhile to pay up for. I mean, all these are things that are going through your head as you go from table to table. But I think one of the things that you're potentially going to get at a vintage trade night is you're going to get a different approach. It's not all going on comps and figuring out what the last sale was, and it's some of it is it's a little more esoteric. So in that sense, I'm interested to see, Joe, whether that plays itself out or not. Because a lot of the people that are going to be at this trade night are going to be friends who show each other their cards. We have text threads, we have a Discord, we have all kinds of ways to communicate. And I know what my friends are getting in terms of cards before they put them on their channels. So in that sense, I think there's a level of communication I think that's going to be a lot more honest and fair necessarily than maybe dealer to buyer across the table. But we'll
Leighton,
see.
you want to respond to Joe's question?
Great question, Dan. Really appreciate your answer. So I'll just speak about myself, and I'm laughing because I know that as a dealer, I'm particularly challenging to buy from. At the same time, the less I care about that card for my long-term collection, then I'm certainly more flexible than less flexible. At the same time, I also feel, I don't know how else to say this, but when I walk around a convention, whether it be people are actually happy to see me or not is immaterial here, they're happy to see me because they know I have the ability to spend money with them. And so the more fair you are with people kind of all around, obviously makes it work. But I would say as I'm bidding in these auctions, it's really challenging for someone like myself who's trying to do this for a living, but then also really likes the space. Believe me, I've thought long and hard. I'm like, dang it, maybe I should just not collect. But then this wouldn't feel the same for me, and it wouldn't be the same experience in life. And so, Dan, I appreciate you laughing. It's really not possible. So I feel that, like I said, on the one hand, that for me, selling is challenging because I love the stuff, even though I do it professionally. But on the other hand, buying is so much fun because I'm like, even if I can't quite pull the trigger as a dealer, maybe I'll just pay some more and buy it for my PC. It's nice to have some flexibility.
I don't mean to laugh. I was laughing, Leighton, because I can't see any way possible that you would not have a collection. I know you well enough to know that that's something that means a lot to you, and I respect it. So it wasn't a derisive laugh. It was a laugh. It was.
Yeah, no, I don't. But I appreciate you saying that. Sure.
Okay.
I respect it too. When you got somebody who's a professional baseball card treasure hunter who also collects it, it's nice to know that they know you as a customer, what is going on in your head. You know, they're gonna take that collector approach in advising you and dealing with you. I think that's a great thing. I feel like this is a weird industry where hobby, whatever you want to call it, where the vendors, the retailers are often collectors as well. And you know how it goes. Don't get high on your own supply, but come on. I mean, sometimes when this supply is so good and we love it so much, we can't help but being one of the participants as well. Okay, guys.
Jeremy, sorry, I just want to cut you off because I want to throw this point out there before I kind of hit the road. You guys talk more Strongsville stuff, and I'll be tuned in. It's really important for me to share that because I'm so entrenched, and I do love it as much as Dan knows and Jeremy knows as far as a collector goes, but also really do appreciate, and I'm very grateful to be able to do this for a living. I would say, and this is not just like a shameless plug for me, this is more for you, whoever's watching this, to find the right person for you. Could be a card store owner. It really could just be a collector, someone you meet at a trade night. But man, I'll tell you, whether it be it's our buddy Jim Ector, Dan, I think you and I have done a couple trades. If I know the card's going to a good home and we're going to be trading, it's so much different than if you're coming to me and I don't know you and you're trying to just take liquid material and you're trying to give me a liquid material back. It takes on a life of its own. And the way you were talking about, Jeremy, kind of like a vendor, I almost would say, like, I got a lot of buddies in the finance space. They play a lot of golf. I wish more people I knew played tennis. But, in our space, we just happen to be that we also love our work. And obviously, in some cases, some of us do this, more often than not to make money. In other cases, it's just strictly for enjoyment. But however we decide to kind of dip our toe into the pool, I think it's super awesome that we have people out there, like just the four of us and everyone who's watching right now, that are really just very appreciative and present to the fact that we are in this super cool and very unique growing space, which means prices are growing, but yet we're all sensitive to the fact that, like, hey man, I don't necessarily have the money to give you 800 cash right now, but can I give you 300 and we could talk about some cards? Like, I don't know that many other industries that would work. It wouldn't work at my car repair place, but I think that that's what makes us stand out, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. So Leighton, you'll be at Strongsville next weekend. You're going to be set up and doing your thing. I again,
not set up, just walking around.
No. Buying.
Oh, love to be there with you as well for joining us here tonight. Yeah, we're going to bring Mikey Singer on. He's in the back. We're going to bring him on, and he's one of the guys running. So it'll be great to have him on. But Leighton, thank you so much. Just Collect Vintage Breaks, Leighton_Sheldon on Instagram. Trace, and his other one is the Vintage Spotlight that we co-host together. And this episode, Leighton, thanks for joining.
See you, boys.
Okay, I think Leighton, there we go. All right, Leighton. All right. Okay, so Dan, we're going to bring Mikey on right now, and then we'll do some comments towards the end of your segment, Dan. But let's bring on Mr. Mikey Singer, CEM, president and founder of MChem. Mikey, how are you, buddy?
Good. The CEM designation means a lot less on this chat than it does in my other line of work. So it's certified in event management. So not as fun for say the sports card hobby.
Now, thanks for answering the question we were all going to ask CEM.
That's it. Had to throw that in there, right? Like,
I know you've met Dan, so I'll give you guys a moment to say hello.
I have not met Mikey. Mikey did the interview with Four Collectors with John and Theo. I have watched Mikey on this channel multiple times, I believe. and love him. And I think that he's just one of the best guys in the hobby. So I called him a gem to you, Jeremy, in our private message.
One of the things about Mikey's one of these guys who got into the hobby because of his work, because of his event management company, but he fell in love with the hobby, with the cards, the collecting, the scene, the social, everything that goes on. And now he's a full. I've been in the room where Mikey is sitting right now. And let me tell you, it's like a maze to get down there and through all the little rooms to get to the room he's in. There's cards here. There's empty wrappers on the table over there. It's he's literally living in the hobby right now, which is great because he is working in it a lot. Mikey, you don't do all your work with card shows, but you do run with Steve Menzie, who's the owner of the Sport Card Expo, 6 or 7 shows a year up in Canada. You basically run the logistics for all of his shows, and you guys run Strongsville as well. So I thought it would be great to have you on. Strongsville's next week. Have you on with Dan, who is one of the runners or the organizers of the trade night. So Mikey, you know all about trade nights. What do you think about Strongsville having a vintage themed trade night this year?
It's going to be awesome. Already knowing the crowd and the attendees and obviously the vendors that come through. And you did last year, right? Last year was the first year that you guys did something a little more informally at the hotel. And the fact that it's so close. You walk out of the venue, walk across the parking lot into the hotel, and you're there. So it's 5 minutes away. It's a really good crowd for it. Also, a lot of set collecting at the show, and that's where the hobby has its roots. And this is where I think this is going to be. I'll see a lot of people closing out sets, really collecting and trading some stuff that they wouldn't find anywhere else. I'm excited to see it. I'll be there myself for sure, as we promised, right? And I'm excited to see the turnout. And we do these at all the shows now. It's really become the extra parts of the event. They grow organically, as Dan and his team is seeing right now. 2 years in, I expect it to be bigger than it was before. The ones in Toronto have doubled each year. It's really nice to see, and it means that people don't get enough at the show. Right. They want to hang out together, and it is a card aspect, but as everyone said leading in, it's a social aspect to it too, right? Yeah. It's another way. It's not as intense. On the show floor, you really are business. You're trying to hit every booth. You're trying to look through everything. It's a much more relaxed environment. You do have a lot more conversations. It is a lot more about networking. And I love these parts. And Jeremy, you do some pre-events. You'll be doing some pre-events in a few weeks as well.
Yeah. I've been organizing a social event at the Expo for 15 years or so now, and twice a year. And it's similar to what you're doing, Dan, but I've never called it a trade night. It's been like a networking event. We're calling a social event on the 23rd or on Thursday, the 23rd or 24th of this month. It's an Expo social event. Just come on out. There's going to be, it's one of those, and I think it's such a wonderful thing. But one thing I want to mention, Mikey, Dan said this earlier when he came on. He said that the organizers of Strongsville, being really you and Menzie, I think is who he means, were just so easy to work with. And I love hearing that because, I love you guys, right? I love hearing that. But I wonder, as compared to what, and I'm not putting on the spot, Dan, but really shouldn't show organizers be super easy to deal with when you're trying to enhance their event? What do you think, Dan? Dan, why do you think they're so easy to work with? And then, Mikey, you tell us why you are.
Well, let me say this. I go to a lot of shows. I go to shows all over the place, all over the country, mostly. And there are some shows that are run very well. You mentioned the Philly show. The Philly show has always been run very well. Other shows, less so. And I'm not going to get into specifics. I got in trouble on my channel doing this earlier this year. So I'm not going to get into it again. But, I went to Strongsville once last year, and Strongsville was run perfectly. Literally, the show was perfect. Every, space, the people working, everybody was helpful. It was just one of those things where I was like, okay, these guys are pros. And now I've come to find out, working with them directly with the trade night, that it's true. I mean, the professionalism and the ability to do things very consistently and getting everything done correctly, to me, is it's priceless. And so I'm not going to trash another show, but I'm going to say this is one of the best run shows in the country, period.
I love it. I love hearing that. So Mikey, why are you guys so easy to deal with when it comes to organizing events that surround the main event, where you're not, where the show organizer cannot or does not look at that extraneous event as, number one, it's not a profit center for them, and it might, and does it compete with the show itself?
So I think it stems from Steve, right? And his interest in, and Leland's and that team and Mike and the other owners inside the space. Like, it really is about working together to make a better product, to make a better experience. So when Dan and his colleagues came over and they were already doing it and it was great, we know we want to support it. It's not even about just letting it happen. How can we help you make it even better? Can we do some giveaways? You want some cards? Let's do something even cooler. Let's work together and let's make it a great experience for all the attendees, because that only does better for the whole industry overall. Someone comes out, this could be their first show. They're going to have an awesome time. Someone brings their kid. That kid becomes part of the hobby and is a future hobbyist for the next 25 years. So all of this leads to better experiences, leads to growth overall. And Steve sees that because he's been in the industry for X number of years. And even before that, created some great experiences in other event spaces before. Supporting those around you and having a better experience by, supporting those people who want to create it, it always pays off in the end. And it doesn't have to pay off monetarily to mean it pays off for the event overall and the hobby in general.
Right on. So
Yep.
I want, if I can switch it up, Dan, and if you have anything to respond to, feel free to what he said. But I want to change it up. I want to ask you, Dan, what are you looking to pick up? Do you have any targets at the show? I watched Greg midlife. What's that, Joe?
Now we're talking.
Yeah. Well, I watched Greg's midlife cards show today, where he featured a bunch of Ashes cards in inventory that he'll have at the show. And I mean, there's 5 Jim Brown cards on this slide and 7 Ty Cobb portraits on this one, and a half a dozen Babe Ruth 33 Goudies. It was like, this guy's, and at all price points. It's not all super high end. It's not all super low end. But I saw that. I'm like, oh, there's 241 play ball Joe DiMaggio's there. I was like, Greg, can you zoom in on that for me? But of course, it was pre-recorded, and so he didn't know I was saying that out loud. But Dan, over to you. And before you answer, I just want to mention, so we have Grant from GP Sports Cards joining us too. Grant, I see you there, buddy. We're going to bring you on in about 7 to 10 minutes. Okay. So thank you. Dan, what are you looking to pick up? Any big targets you're willing to share with the crowd?
So in Philly, in the last show, I bought this, which is literally a lifetime grail. And I think I put it up on Instagram and got a lot of activity. The 30.
Yeah. Put it. Yeah, come back up to center screen. Pull it up. Come on, don't be shy.
Put it back up again if you don't mind. I'm gonna spotlight you for a sec.
There you go.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
So interestingly enough, I bought this from Ash. And I bought a lot of cards from Ash. And Ash, you're right. Greg had a great video. I watched the whole thing, and I was same as you, Jeremy. Like, looking through, and I put together my list. My number one card, and it's hilarious that Joe mentioned this because Joe is like reading my mind, I think, throughout this event. My number one target is a T206 Ty Cobb red portrait. And last weekend, I sold my bat on shoulder at a show in Brooklyn to raise the funds to make up the difference from, the money that I've been saving for Strongsville. So that's like my number one target. And, does Ash have an incredible inventory? Of course, but he's not the only one. I mean, there's a lot of guys at this show who are like the best vintage dealers in the country who will have similar amounts of amazing inventory. So, I will visit Ash. I will probably maybe work a deal with him. We'll see. But there are other dealers that I'm obviously gonna hit up. And the other great thing about Strongsville for me last year was that I got a chance to see dealers that I don't normally see, because most of my card shows are, national, East Coast, Philly, Shriners, Hofstra, White Plains. So I don't see a lot of the guys from the Midwest and further west. So I got an opportunity, and also the local Cleveland guys who don't really travel much, I got to visit with some of them. So targets, there's a lot. The Red Cobb is number one, but if I don't land that, I have alternates.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Night. Joe, did you see Greg's episode today with the with all the inventory?
I did, and I'm going to go back to it as he recommended. Just press pause if you really want to talk at the cards. And Dan, before we get out of here, I know you've been a loyal, member in the audience with the chat, and you're a true pleasure. And English teachers keep track of diction and syntax. You're well spoken. Word choice, derision, esoteric. I just wonder what is do you have a day job, or did you have a career outside of the card world?
Well, I actually had a question for Josh Adams last week, because we're both criminal defense lawyers. I've been a lawyer for more than 35 years.
Gotcha.
I would like to someday retire. I'm not there yet, and the recent activity in the stock market has kind of made that a little more difficult for me. But I'd like to actually do card stuff full time after I retire from the law. So we'll see. It
all makes sense now. Thank you.
There you go. Well spoken. He's read his share of case law and text, I'm sure, along the way. So you're gonna see a lot of big words when you're going through that kind of profession, aren't you, Dan?
Yeah. It's a great hobby to retire into.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Excellent goals to aspire.
What about you, Mikey? You're going to be at the show. Are you going to be? And I know, Mikey does love cards, but he's mostly like a basketball guy. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but he likes his his Raptors, his modern players. Have you, Mikey, become at all enamored by or intrigued by the vintage side of things? Have you entered that world yet?
There hasn't been a Strongsville show where I haven't walked out with 3 or 4 cards.
Okay. Okay.
There hasn't been, and I'll be looking for a Moberg rookie to come home for.
I will have one in my case and trade night.
So I will likely sit with you, Dan. I will have money burning a hole in my pocket to go home with. Colin, I just wanted to say hi. I did see you in the chat out there. Yeah, that's the fun part, right? And for me to go out and see all this vintage, especially coming from the Canadian side, you just don't see the quality and the quantity that you see in that room. And it is cool. It is like going to a museum. Some of the stuff I was blown away by. And the show's been running for so long. It is one of the longest running shows in North America. And so it's cool to see the exhibitors and the dealers and how their relationships have formed over the years.
Yeah.
Right. That gives you the soul and the heart of the show. So those relationships, and then I'm not just talking the 10x10s, but even the auction houses, who've been coming there since day one. So it is really neat to see. Super stoked to be there and work with the team out there.
Right on. Midlife Greg says Strongsville is going to be a freaking blast. Mookie is right. Jeremy and Joe, make it happen. I wish not this year, Greg and everybody. And trust me, and I feel like in the last year, I've become closer with more of the vintage YouTube community, let's say, more and more people in the chat. And there's nothing I'd like more than to come there and, sit down with you, Dan, and all. I'm not going to call it anyone in the chat. There's too many of you guys. I don't want to miss anybody, but all you guys, and, just have a meal. Look at each other's pickups for the day. Talk about what you're excited about tomorrow. What booths are you going back to tomorrow? Maybe I'm going to walk with you and give you my thoughts on a card. You're going to give me your thoughts on a card I'm looking at. Dan, I'm curious. You mentioned the red portrait cob. Any specific card back you're looking for with that, or will it just be kind of whatever you can find that fits your budget, that fits your eye as well?
Yeah, no, it's a great point about the social aspect of is great to hang out and have a drink and chat about your family or whatever, but the card information that you get from these people, and many of them are in the chat, these guys are incredibly knowledgeable and helpful and looking out for you. And, Orlando, who's been on this show, who's, one of the best guys in the hobby. First time I met him last year, he was showing me other people's gets. Like, he's really interested in showing off how other people are doing well. So in that sense, I feel like that camaraderie helps you on the show floor.
Yeah.
The red cob is going to be, the back is not going to be an issue. I don't want to pay up for an off back. And it's really going to be more about eye appeal and budget. And I have enough to be able to buy a good one, a good eye appeal, plus get another couple of comic cards and have myself a nice little show. And if I do well on the trade night, I'm spending it in the show the next morning. So,
Look,
we'll see what happens.
It looks like I might be sitting down with you and trying to pump more money into the show's economy, right? We're just helping cycle it through.
And what Mikey said, it's like that idea that the trade night is not a competition with the show. It's a complementary thing. Yeah. And it's great for the commerce of the show. It's great for the publicity of the show. It's great to bring, asses in seats, so to speak. It's like one of those things where if you can do it together, you're probably going to be more successful together. And I think that's really the kind of mindset that I really admire in the group that's running this show.
The trade night, these events, they really do enhance the overall weekend. And I think that's just an amazing addition to card shows that we've seen really in the last 5 or 6 years. So, all right. Well, Dan, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for taking the time away from the chat and onto the screen tonight. You've been a regular
right
contributor.
Chat, as soon as I log off, I'm going right into the chat.
Going into the chat. Well, great to have you on the show, Dan. And
Uncle Rich said it before. He's right. I am honored to be on the show. You and Joe do an incredible job every week, and I look forward to the show. Being on it is an honor, frankly.
Thank you, Dan. And please update us. I'm following your IG account. Please update us on the pickup that is hopefully made at Strongsville. I'm looking forward to seeing what you find.
Yeah.
You everybody will know.
All right, Dan.
Looking forward to seeing you.
Good luck, Dan.
Hey, Mikey.
I won't see you next weekend, but I'll see you at the Nationals. So until then, take care. We'll see you here in the chat, and good luck next weekend at the show.
Take care, guys.
All right. Thank you. Thank you to Dan from Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. That was great to get him on. Okay, guys. Well, we've got still 2 more guests coming through. The first one, he's back there now. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Just real quick, because I didn't get a chance to say hi to Mikey. Mike, I don't know if you remember. I think we met at Burbank. I think Jeremy introduced us, or maybe it was.
No, you got to meet Steve. I'm not cool enough to get out to California. No? I only get to go out to work shows. My wife, I get one extra show a year, and that typically is the National.
Was it the Mint? Were you at the Mint?
Yeah, I was at the Mint Collective. I was at the Mint Collective.
I know. Yes. I know. I've met you in person before, and we had a nice little, moment of connecting. And then I just also wanted to say one more thing. I see your jersey back there. I see the Siakam, and I was in the seats game 1 when Pascal went for 32, 8, and 5 against my Warriors, and they, and then I was there in game 6 when they clinched it, and Canada was going on there in Oakland at Oracle, and it was rough, man. Let me tell you, it was rough. But I was happy for Raptor fans everywhere. I appreciated the magnitude of that moment, but it was rough, man. But I see your jersey back there. I see your Siakam.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure you had the other 4 championships to warm your heart up a little bit. It's a tough run for you that decade, losing 1 but winning 4 more. It was a hard way for you guys to lose it, right? Like it really. It hurt to see Clay and Durant go down like that, but awesome. I was downtown. Craziest thing ever. Because I now have been downtown when the Jays won twice. Once when I was in the Dome with my mom, and the second time I was down with my brother. And then me and my friends were watching downtown, and we just hit the downtown core. I didn't go to the actual parade, which got a little intense. It was hot. It was midday, but I did go down to when they won, and it was the best party I have ever been to. It was like 1 million people spilling out to the streets, everyone high-fiving each other. No, like a couple things got destroyed, but in a city of 5 million, very little. It was great. The Kawhi plant guy, like awesome stuff going on.
All right.
Hopefully we're rebuilding. A little tougher for us right now.
All right, guys. Good reminiscing on the Raptors. A quick hello, Mike Petty. What's going on, Mr. Mike Petty? Colin Murray, hello. THA Card Story. Good evening. Tony Sin is here. Just wanted to say hello to a few people that we didn't get a chance to earlier. But now we're going to bring on Grant Pap. G, are you ready to come on? Give me a thumbs up. He's ready. All right, guys. Please welcome Grant Patterson of GP Sports Cards to the show. Hi, Grant. How are you?
Jerry, how's it going? Good.
Say hi to Joe. Say hi to Mikey.
Yo, Mikey, how's it going, guys?
Good. See you in a couple weeks, buddy.
Yeah, excited. Only a few weeks away. Counting down the days.
So,
Yeah.
so Mikey, Joe, Grant, I invited Grant on tonight because, well, Grant and GP Sports Cards are a sponsor of Sports Cards Live. I'm very grateful for that, of course. And as I mentioned a little while ago, for 15 years, I've been organizing an event at the Sport Card Expo in Toronto. It happens Thursday night. We get about 125, 150 people out in recent years. And we've outgrown our venue. And Grant and I connected early, December, January this year. And, we decided that we would co-host it now moving forward, Mikey. I think you're aware of that, Mikey. You should be. And so I want to bring Grant on to say, well, Grant, first of all, how cool is it that we're going to co-host the event now? I'm glad to bring you on. You've got a great community on your YouTube channel, guys. Grant has one of these YouTube channels that it's pretty much, it's not only breaking, but he also, because he has an LCS, he has a breaking company, but he also posts content about purchasing collections and that sort of thing. And it's one of those YouTube channel that his videos get over, 10,000 views, and he's got, 20,000 subscribers, something like that, Grant. And it, but he's really in a vacuum in a way, Grant, because you are hockey almost exclusively. Is that right?
Yeah. Like the store obviously does all sports, but from my side, from like the GP Sports brand, all hockey from our end.
So, Grant, we're having our event now. We're moving from Jack Astor's over to a place called Arizona. We're not in Arizona. We are in Canada. We're being right by the Toronto airport, but we're having it at the venue is now called Arizona. I've always called it Arizona's.
Arizona. It is. Isn't it Arizona's?
I thought so, but I don't know if it is or not. We got to check. But that's where it's going to be this year.
Quick Google on this. Sorry.
Yeah. So Grant, why don't you, listen, this is something that we're doing. You're getting more and more active as an LCS owner, more presence online. What are you looking forward to about hosting this event? Never mind the whole expo. We know we're going to have a blast at the show, but what are you looking forward to about co-hosting this event with me on Thursday night and the event itself, of course?
Yeah. So I've always said, I love your event, Jeremy. It's like a nice mix where, it's different than a trade night. It's more of like a social night. And that's what I love about it. And so we're sort of just, coming in with like a box opening. We're going to be doing a cup case with Billy Celio. We're going to have some upper deck people there, do some fun giveaways and that sort of thing. So it's pretty much like your event, which is already great. And then we're just adding, a great community and some more people to it and sort of expanding it. And it's going to be a fun night.
Yeah, we are going to expand. That's the thing. The event that I've been doing, as I said, we outgrew the venue. People were literally coming and walking out because they couldn't get in. And I felt terrible about that. But it's also, I also kind of said, well, you got to get there early if you want to get in. So now hopefully we don't have that problem. We're going to be in a bigger location. Upper Deck, as they have been for the past couple of years, will be sponsoring the appetizers at the event, which I think is a wonderful thing. Very nice. I want to shout out and thank Upper Deck for doing that. And as you mentioned, Billy Celio being a senior brand manager at Upper Deck, and yourself will be breaking in, hopefully there'll be a camera and a screen and all that, and you'll be breaking a case of the Cup, which is, the premier product in hockey cards. And hopefully we'll be broadcasting this around the world. Never mind just in the room. I'm kidding. We'll see what we can do there. But I'm looking forward to it, Grant. It's gonna be a lot of fun doing it that way. What else are you looking forward to about the Expo this April?
Oh, it's so much fun. Just like every show, it's, like getting to see the same people that you see every single year that come up to the booth, say hi to them. And, it's obviously the cards, but it's the relationships that you build. And, the certain cards that I've kept aside for certain collectors for a year plus, like waiting for this show that they're finally making it to. And then sort of expanding on like that social night where, aside from the cards, we can hang out and, grab a bite and talk. So it's best weekend of the year. We get it twice a year. Always look forward to it. And I'm so pumped, so excited for it.
And, I always say to Mikey, are you going to come to Jack Astor's tonight? And I don't think Mikey's ever come. And it's because he's too busy running to Jack Astor's, Mikey. I don't think Mikey's ever come to Jack Astor's for one of the events, but it's only because you're so busy running the show. And so you definitely get a pass, Mikey, but it would obviously be a lot of fun to have you at the event. Another thing I'd like to sort of maybe announce for the first time, and not as big of a deal, but it is for me, and I think for Grant too, is that if anybody watching has seen me at the Expo, I've always, had my booth, and it's now that we're in the new hall, it's a bit of a different location, but for the first time ever, my booth is now going to be, and Sam, my booth mate, Sam Genova, good buddy of mine, good buddy of Grant's too. We're now going to be in your area, Grant. We're going to be boothed up with you this time, and a part of your booth, I guess. We're going to have it's going to be like a community booth. We're not taking one of your tables or one of your booths, because you'll have 6 booths probably, but we're going to be in your, what do you call it, Mikey? Booth farm?
Island?
It's like a cubicle farm sort of thing. What do we say?
Cubicle farm. No, you're part of his area. I mean, and it speaks to how big Grant has grown from his first time in the show to where he's taking up a 6 block of booths. That he has space, for you to take a couple cases out of, or a few tables out of. Also, I'd just like to say thank you for calling me out for never showing out to the event, but then saying it's okay. Steve gets to go, right? And if Steve gets to go, likely that means I'm there dealing with the stuff he doesn't want to. So that's why I've never made it, but I'm there in spirit. And these events are how you make friends. Is me and Jeremy, like I got to know Jeremy actually at during the virtual. That's when I first really got to know Jeremy, and then as we started to do and hang out at more shows, so Edmonton, and now I speak to Jeremy probably once or twice a week about cards and other stuff. So I'm laughing that I got called out leading into this, but yes, it is very much a great way to make friends in this hobby.
Oh yeah, and I can only call Mikey out because we are such good friends that I know that that he knows it's not a true call out. But again, I've been doing this for 15 years, Mikey, and you have not made it. But I kid. But what ends up happening is I end up after the event, I drive over to your house and hang out with you at your house and look at cards with you anyway. So I still get to see you on those evenings. So you mentioned just now that, Grant has grown over the past several years. And I mean, I remember seeing Grant at the Expo. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Grant, going back many years, 10 to 15 years now. And you've really built up your business, and you are also a collector, which is cool. Grant, if Grant could have his spread at the National, you guys, he would easily and far and away kind of let the people that go to the National know that there's actually hockey cards there. And it would easily become the center of the show for the hockey collector, because that's how much inventory he carries. When I was at the expo in November, I know that one of the first booths I have to go look at is Grant's, because I know that he holds cards back for like months and months only to like just put them out of the expo and just kind of put everybody into shock. It's crazy the amount of stuff that he puts out. And you know, you've done a great job, Grant. How do you explain your growth as a vendor? And again, I say that, but I want people who are watching, listening to understand Grant is a collector. And I know that because I helped you buy a huge card for your PC at Fanatics Fest. If you remember, I remember that. And I often show up in his videos because I love to pop my head in front of his camera and kind of throw him off his game a little bit. But Grant, how do you sort of explain how you have grown to becoming, you know, maybe, and take nothing away from other great vendors at the expo, but a feature booth, maybe the feature booth at the expo, Grant? How do you explain it?
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate all that. Yeah, I would say it's a growth with the YouTube channel and social media, but also like being a collector. I feel like I have the advantage there, right? Like I might not be the best business guy, but I live through cards, so I do this 24/7, and especially specializing in hockey. Like I feel I have a good grasp of, you know, almost every side of hockey cards in the industry on that end. For knowledge wise. So, and also, you know, you treat the people fair and they come back. Like, I don't look at it as, you know, you try to take advantage of anyone in this hobby. That's just wrong business. So I make my margin, and, you know, there's multiple cards that I know I could make a little bit more or a little less, but you take care of the people that you supply and everyone's happy. You know, everyone makes their own little margin there. That's why our booth at the expo, like the first, before we even open the doors, there's vendors out the wazoo like there, because, you know, we don't like maximize and make sure we get the top dollar and everything. Like we know it's a cycle for everyone to, you know, make a bit, and especially for the collection buy, you know, taking care of customers is the biggest thing. And I think we've made that pretty transparent where people know what they're going to get. We're going to make sure they know every single sale of that card when they bring in that collection. And again, we're making small margins on this stuff, but for me, the excitement comes from getting that piece into the right hands, or finding that rare collection. Because at the end of the day, like, breaks are great and everything on that end. But still, what excites me is someone walking through the door with a card that I haven't seen in 10 years. And then, you know, the odd one I'll add to the personal collection here and there.
I like how you said, you know, what really gives you gratification is getting the card into the right collection. I always say I take a lot of pride when I'm a vendor placing a card into the right collection, because I consider it almost, it's a placement. Like I you know, it's like an adoption process. Not all cards, some cards I don't care where they go, but other cards I want them to go into good hands. And it's always nice to, when you see someone buy a card from you or trade a card with you at a card show, and as they're walking away, they're not even looking to see who they're walking into. They're just staring at their new card. They love it so much. It's just always a fun thing to be a part of, really. And yeah, you know, you've built up a great inventory, great showing at the show, and I get, you know, the YouTube channel certainly helped you, but you know, you said you said, you know, I may not be the best at business, and then you said it's about doing good you do good business. You treat people well. Right here in the chat, even we've got Phil from the Hockey Cards Gong Show. The Loud Collector says, Grant took a heavy discount to sell me my Gretzky Future Watch auto. Absolute beauty friend and business associate. I mean, that's just a beautiful comment right there from Phil. By the way, guys, if you're not checking out the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast, you obviously need to do that. But Phil also said, Grant, blink twice if you're in danger while you're here on the Sports Cards Live show. Here with Jeremy, Joe, and Mikey. Here's a question for you, Mikey. YK, who I got to thank for doing my timestamps on these videos. YK says, any idea when the floor plan for Expo is coming out? I always try to run to Grant's table first thing. Mikey, any heads up on the floor plan?
Yeah, it should be out honestly within the next week or so. I will be launching it on the site and the app automatically, so you'll be able to find GP sports cards really easily. Get the app, type it in the search bar, it'll take you right there. And yeah, look, Grant made some great points. Treat people well, treat them right. Don't try to scam people, and business will take care of itself because people will come back and find you, and their friends will find you because you'll have a good reputation of being a person that you want to deal with. So that really helps, and especially at the show, and especially when you're talking about people cashing in their collections, and when you're talking about someone who may not know the value of it, it's always great to send them to a good vendor. The second thing is Joe mysteriously disappeared from camera and then reached into the ocean, grabbed a beer, and came back and sat down. And I just wanted to say that was also great.
You're calling Joe out for having a drink, huh?
Not a drink. It was just the way it happened because of his background. It looked like he reached into the ocean to grab it. And I mean, I can't be the only one who noticed it and then came back with it. So it was great. It made the whole scene. And look, I think all of this stuff, it helps to grow the business. The better you are to people, if you're not in it to just scam people or make a quick buck, you're going to do better to build something.
Definitely.
And that's good for any business, but especially the hobby.
Right on. Hello to the professors joining us late after the Duke game. Mm-hmm. And Colin Murray says lots of great dealers like Grant at the Expo. There are, Colin Murray being one of them as well. No doubt about that. Stukes, just subscribe to GP Sports Cards. Joe, do you have any questions for Grant? Anything you'd like to pose to him?
Well, before I get to Grant, I want to just make sure, Mikey, we need to work on your emancipation here. This whole, Steve can stay behind and, take care of all the legwork. You get out to Jack Astor's. You go have some interactive time. You be involved in the networking. I think that would be good for the brand. So just putting that out there. Maybe Steve is listening. I don't know. Grant, you remind me actually, ironically, of my cousin who's also named Grant, who is a great guy, and I'm sure we'd get along in real life. I'm going to put you on the spot here because you mentioned that you feel like you have a pretty good grasp of hockey. So I want you to succinctly give me the arguments for and the arguments against putting a little investment into the local guy here, Macklin Celebrini. And if you were to do something, where would you go with it? What card might you be looking at if it was a pro? So pros, cons, and maybe an asset that you think might be, have some long-term potential.
Well, Celebrini in specific, look, I always say for top rookies, the market is so important. So depending on how great of a player he is, I'm sure he's going to be like an absolute all-star and a great prospect. But I don't bet as much on the top rookies when the market's not there to support. Like we've seen it with Bedard example. Like Bedard is, generational, a lot of people say, and he had a little slump in the second year. He's in Chicago though. His market is amazing. San Jose, not so much. They're very entertaining to watch, and they have that on their side with Will Smith and all the young guys. But I would say, it's cautious. Everyone gets hyped up for the first year of collecting a top rookie, and at the same time, I have to sell these products coming for the next year. But everyone does get hyped up, and it really depends on how he puts up those numbers. I would say for card specific wise, Future Watch Autograph would be a stable one. That's a staple card where we've seen a lot of Bedard cards drop, and the Future Watch Auto has sustained the same price almost. So that's a great investment piece. SP Authentic is always a great product. I also like unique stuff. Like that's what my personal collection is because it doesn't fluctuate from, the market going up or down on a young gun per se. Like we know young guns right now at the number that they are, they're going to go down 20-30% because of the hype of the new release. So I'd tell people to be cautious when you're buying new rookies like that. Typically the first month of the release, you're going to see a huge sale volume of these items going for record-breaking numbers because they just came out. And no matter what that rookie does, no matter what the stats he puts up, it will go down about 10-20% from that release. But if I had to put my money into one card for Celebrini, I'd put a Future Watch autograph, or I'd go after his big Cup RPA because those are two staples.
I want to throw one out there too, for a guy like Joe who just wants, because it's local, and Joe's involved in the hockey market as far as hearing me talk about it a lot, hearing you, so I would also, I don't know that I would grab a Young Guns, but I might grab a Young Guns exclusives out of 100 because it's a more limited version of the flagship rookie card of the Young Guns. Something like that could be a longer term hold. I don't like to give sort of investment advice or prospecting advice at all, but that's the direction. Like, I wouldn't grab a Young Gun. The Future Watch auto that Grant mentioned, I think it's a great card. They're always beautiful. They're autographed. They're clean looking. There's 999 of them, which is kind of a good amount. It's a lot, but it's still a good amount. And so the Young Guns exclusives is out of 100, lower number, probably more. What are they selling for right now, Grant? Do you know a Celebrini Young Gun exclusive? I think they're doing like over $1,000 actually. Are they not?
The clear cut's like 800 to 1,000. So I'm assuming the exclusive is probably like 4,000 right now.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, right up there.
It's expensive right now. But
can I ask a personal question on just the card? So Grant, why? So I love Future Watch, and one thing I don't understand, because I'm not a huge collector of hockey, but I like that specific brand. Why is a retro Future Watch, which is at a $4.99, versus the Future Watch, which is at a $9.99, usually less expensive than that, like the regular Future Watch? I don't understand it, and this is from an outsider perspective. It doesn't make any sense to me.
So that's like, it's like taking like the true rookie cards. So example, like a Young Guns, like Extended has the like renewed or like the version of the Young Guns, the retro Young Guns. So it's not as true rookie, and just like all sports, across all sports, like you have the Prism rookie, but then when you get into those different parallels, the value drops off. So you could have the true blue, but then you have the blue laser and it goes for a lot less. So that's sort of the same thing, I would say, to a lesser degree, because we don't have as many parallels and that sort of stuff in hockey. The retro Future Watch autograph takes a design of a different year. It doesn't give the grasp, but it's the true rookie from that set. And the problem I have with retro is, like, I don't even want to get into all that, but it's just like, at what point for that design of that player do we stop and stop remaking that? So I'm not huge on retros. I get why they have to be in the product. We need to produce more boxes. We need more autographs. But there is definitely some backlash from the hockey community on those retros.
See, yeah. Great. And there we go. A great hobby answer to a question from an outside observer. I love it.
It's a great question, Mikey. It really is. And like and Grant answered it well. Phil from the Gong Show, he says, because it's not a, in quote, real rookie. He then says the real answer has layers, and he's right. It is more than just it not being a true RC. Because to me, it's still there's value there still, because it's a rookie year autograph card from the set that all of his rookie cards come out of. But what I don't like about it is it's not an original design to that year. So, and like, there's just been too many tributes done over the past several years for my liking, or my collecting, I should say. So I hear it. And I think Grant gave a great answer. But okay, guys, we got Chris Hoge, our closer, in the back room. We're going to bring him on here right away. So Mikey, I want to say thank you for coming on coming on the show, and maybe one of these years I'll see you at a Thursday night event. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. Maybe. Listen, maybe Steve was listening and he wants to let me go, but I'm doubtful. Guys, listen, have a good one. Thanks for having me on. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, bud.
Night.
All right. Thanks to Mikey for coming on. Grant, what about you? How's your night going? Are you still good? Do you want to stick around for a bit? We're going to bring on Chris Hoge. He'll bring a topic. We'll get into it. You're welcome to stick around, but I know you're busy. If you need to run, you can bail too. Where are you at right now?
I'm gonna be honest. I have a late night, I have an early morning, so I'm probably gonna head up right now, Jeremy. But I appreciate you so much for having me on. It was awesome, and I look forward to returning to the show. So,
all right, no, I know it's a late one for you. I want to introduce you to my friend Chris Hoge first. So let me bring Chris on. Chris, we're bringing you on. Chris, welcome back. I just want to introduce you to Grant. Grant's someone I spent a lot of time with at the shows, and Chris is a friend. So I want you guys to say hello.
Hey, Chris.
Nice to meet you. Sorry I'm running you off. I guess me and Joe and Jeremy are gonna have to hold down the fort here.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. It's been a crazy week to say the least. I've been long nights, early mornings, but I love the grind. So, but yeah. So sorry, Jeremy, but I do gotta.
It's okay, but no, it's all good. That's why I'm giving you the out. I know it's late for you, and but thanks for coming on, Grant. And we'll be chatting soon too, as we continue to plan for our event on the Thursday before Expo a couple of weeks from now. So thank you, Grant, for coming on. I'll see you soon, buddy.
Thanks, Jeremy. Have a good night, guys.
Take care. All right. Thanks to Grant for joining us. Thanks to the chat. I see some more comments coming in, everybody. Glad to have you. Oh, Mark Santucci's got to go too. So, okay, Mark, have a good rest of the night, bud. We'll see you next, 2 Saturdays from now. Again, no show next Saturday, guys. No show next Saturday. That goes for everybody. I just want to let you know. I hope you don't wait for the show to start because there will not be one, but there will be the Saturday after. But guys, Chris, good to see you, buddy. What's up? What's going on? I know you usually listen on the way in. What are your thoughts so far? And curious what topic you might have brought for us tonight.
Yeah, it was getting interesting there talking about the real rookie card and the rookie year card and the tribute cards and the designs original to the season. That's the stuff that gets my blood flowing. So that was good. That was good stuff. Okay, so I have 2 topics, and I'm going to let Jeremy or Joe, I don't know. It's not Jeremy, it's your show. You decide. But I want to let somebody else decide which of the 2 to go with first. I'll just present them both. Okay, Joe decide. All right. So I was listening to all this. I mean, the through line of the show has been talking about trade nights and card shows. So I have a question related to that. But I came preloaded with a question from Card Ladder's industry tab. I figure since I work on Card Ladder, maybe I should talk about it once in a blue moon. And I have a really good piece of data to use from the industry tab that definitely impacts all of us, and that I think it gets a lot of people fired up just kind of thinking about this. So
I think I know what it's going to be. I think I know what that little data point might be.
Okay. So what do you say, Joe?
That's the reveal. I mean, that's all the information I'm allowed before I make my decision.
Yeah.
Maybe you can ask one follow-up if we want to really keep this mysterious.
I want to go with the Card Ladder one, the second one, please.
Okay, good. I figured that might be it. So this was the month of March 2025 was an historic month for the sports card industry. And the reason I say that is because at Card Ladder, across the marketplaces that we track, which we have data for going back to 2004, we recorded a sales volume of $303 million for the month of March 2025. And for context, because that's just a number, I mean, is it high, is it low? It's by far the highest number we've ever tracked. And so let me tell you sort of like what the next closest months are. The second highest month, which was the highest month for 3 years, was February of 2022, which got up to about a little over 250 million. So that was sort of the bar in terms of sales volume. And what is sales volume? Sales volume, in what I'm talking about here, is the transacting on secondary marketplaces, eBay, Golden, Fanatics Collect, Heritage, MySlabs, etc., of trading card singles and a bit of sealed wax. Not a ton of sealed wax transacts on these platforms. Some does, but not a ton. And this data set does not include Dave & Adams or blowout cards, retailers. It doesn't include card shops. It doesn't include social media platforms. It doesn't include card shows unless one of those sales gets reported and verified by us. So this is a small data set. It's not the full industry. But for this data set, which we've been consistently tracking and have data going back for many years, 303 million is just a a big number. So I wanted to throw that to you guys, and I have a few ways to follow up on it, but I just want to present you with the number and get some immediate reactions to that number in context.
Well, my immediate reaction, and I'm a little mad at my friend Greg at Midlife because he stole my thunder, but I was going to say, well, it's all because I bought a Joe Jackson card. He says right here, he says, the spike is a result of Jeremy's Joe Jackson, which I'd already thought of that, Greg, and you put it in the chat. He says, does the data include Cracker Jack Joe Jackson cards? Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that at this time in the hobby history, we're seeing the record-breaking month. I mean, we all remember February of 2022, and never mind that, the all year in 2021. Was February of 22, Chris, was that the peak of the pandemic bubble in the hobby, if it's fair to call it that? And it might not be.
Yes and no. It was until March, it was the highest sales volume month we'd seen. So in terms of sales volume, yes. In terms of pricing, which is something that I want to get into a little bit here in a second, in terms of pricing, the peak was March of 2021. That was peak pricing. So peak pricing, then pricing came down considerably. Even in early 2022, pricing was coming down. But peak volume happened in early 2022. And then, I mean, we dropped after February 22, we dropped as low as 150 million in November of 2023. And now here we are at 303 million.
303 million a year and a half after that. It's fascinating. And do we have any theses as to why are we seeing that all of a sudden? Were there, I mean, well, we know the Paul Skeens MLB debut patch accounts for 1.11 million of that, but that doesn't explain 300 and plus million. I mean, that's a 300 million plus is a humongous number. But what I love, and I even see Dan in the chat is mentioning something on this note, which is peak pricing happened in 2021, peak volume in 2022, and now are we kind of seeing a convergence of the two? Does that explain it? Where, you know, we bubbled in 21, 22, we kind of burst in 23, as you mentioned, and now we're getting our feet under us and the foundation is strong again, and we're seeing more and more participants. I wonder if that's what explains it, you know? More participants, more transactions, but maybe not as much as we saw in 2021. Good, strong pricing, maybe not what we saw in 2022, if I'm getting my years right here now. But it's an interesting thing. I don't know the exact reason, but I like it. I think it signals that we're in a great spot in the hobby. Those are my opening thoughts. Joe, can we go to Joe, Chris, get his thoughts on it, and then we'll look at, and I mean, we have Deep Value in the chat too, who's wondering, you know, what is this? What stands out about this? That's a great question. That's the whole thing. What stands out from this? So let's get Joe's thoughts, and then Chris, I'd love to hear your theory too.
So occasionally, you know, in my literary studies, there would be an article in The Economist on a novel, but for the most part, I know beans about, you know, the economy and how these things get reckoned. Personally, what this brings to mind is when COVID was emerging, my instinct told me that there was going to be a market crash. There was not a market crash. There's a lot of reasons behind that. But my layman's experience was that when the world goes through transitions, when there's some degree of potentially liminal space that people are experiencing, anxiety or excitement, thrill of change, that sometimes that excites the spending muscle to some degree. Now that's neither here nor there, but that's kind of what it reminds me of, and I guess to sort of name the elephant in the room, there's been a transition of political parties, and that could have had some effect, but aside from that, I agree with what Jay Lee said. I think the hobby is landing on its feet. I think there are there's concrete evidence of people attending card shows in mass, of there's enough data out there for consumer confidence to be very high. Auctions, I mean, our friend Cajun Cardboard documenting the various record-setting prices. So there's so much, I think, for people to kind of point to say this is safe, and the asset class has been embraced to the level that even a major corporation like Dick's Sporting is good. And whether or not we think that's a good thing or not, I'm not commenting on that. But I think it's become apparent that this is not a kind of small time thing. This is a serious way of devoting your funds, investing money, and enjoying the experience along the way, which is primarily why we're all in it. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Some good thoughts there. And I want to bring up a comment we had, Chris, if I may, because you've heard from me, we've heard from Joe, but let's hear from Greg at Midlife Cards, because here it is. He says, I have a hypothesis. If people are worried about the stock market and pull money out of the stock market, they need somewhere to put it. With inflation high, people want to put it into real assets. And he asks that as a question. And I mean, I wonder if that, I think he's right. I think that makes sense, that is how things will end up kind of working themselves out. But like, what is happening in the economy right now is pretty fresh. It's really fresh, right? Like, yeah, we've seen things happen, but as of 3 days ago, it was, the market tanked. What, the Dow lost 10%, on the second, did it not? And so it's super fresh. And now I think, Chris, the March data will be put to the test in April, May, June. And let's see if what Greg says is actually right. His hypothesis, I love the hypothesis. I love it because it bodes well for our cards, for the values of our cards. If people are going to, it's like Joe said, the pandemic came, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I've got all this value tied up in cards. It's about to go from, being worth 10 to being worth, 1.5 or 2, and the next thing we know, it goes from 10 to 50, the complete opposite of what you expect. And then I think to myself, okay, we're going through another crisis right now. Is this going to be the same thing? Is the opposite of what we expect to happen going to happen? And if it does, I think Greg's hypothesis is going to partially, if not completely, explain it. It's the same thing that goes for gold, which we've seen go on a run lately, right? Hard assets that they're tangible, you can touch them. And, when it comes to retired players, at least, I make the analogy to corporations, which is when we're investing in the stock market, you are investing in corporations. Corporations are run by human beings who are very emotional creatures that not only that, they're run by human beings who are emotional, and they are commented on by talking heads who are paid to get clicks and that kind of thing, right? Get people, run up the advertising bills for the networks. So I make that analogy to the stock market in that if the cards are going to go up in value because of what's going on, it's not because of anything that they are doing themselves. Whereas in companies, a manager can just do something stupid and ruin the business. Where with retired players, dead players for sure, they can't do much. but living players, active players can, things can happen. So I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent there, but despite it, I like Greg's hypothesis. I hope he's right, but will this be a similar effect like we saw with the pandemic? So I don't know. Back to you, Chris. Lots there.
Yeah, tons there. I guess I'll start with that most recent point that you and Greg were going back and forth on. And there's sort of another element to it that augments what you guys are saying, which is just that I think I'll just speak for myself. I certainly feel like I understand sports and sports cards and the sports card market much, much better than I understand equities markets or treasuries or interest rates or the stock market. And if there is truth to the notion that sort of when we get scared or frightened by traditional financial markets, maybe we retreat into things we feel a little more comfortable and know a little more about and have confidence because we really desire these items so we can understand how other people can too. And then I'm going to tie that into this point, which is anytime Joe makes a literary reference, I'm going to try and come back with one too. And that reference will be this. There was a book published a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, by an author named Morgan Housel, which is called The Psychology of Money. And to Joe's point, when he mentioned sort of reading a few economist articles in passing, but not really wrapping his head fully around finance, well, Morgan Housel, one of his main theses of this book, which ultimately concludes that you should just buy the S&P 500 and just wait. That's sort of that's the punchline of the book. Sorry to spoil it. But one of the main theses that he makes is that people like compare medicine. If you look at medicine, the advances in medicine over the last 100, 200, 500 years have been exponential. They have grown and grown and grown, and we've become so sophisticated. And that's just one field like that. Science is like that. Math is like that. These fields have really become refined, technology, etc. Well, he compares that to finance, and he says we largely still do finance the same way we did it 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago. The tulip bulb mania that happened, several hundred years ago, we're still prone to things like that happening today. Goofy coins and those bubbles and the rug pulls and all these financial goofy games that we've played even within the last few years, and they still plague us. And so Housel's point to you, Joe, is that it's not just you, it's literally the whole collective group, all of us, understanding of finance, even finance professionals. There's just such limited scope in terms of methodologies to understand it and predict, and let alone trying to predict it. And is it psychological? Is it technical? And then I'll wrap it up with this in terms of what caused it. And I really liked Dan's comments where he was talking about price. And he said, we have much realer prices now, essentially, than we did in 2021 or 2022. And the data bears that out. So if you look at the CL50 index, that index is down more than 60% compared to peak pricing in March of 2021. Now that index is also up 10% over the last quarter, but it still has a ways to go. It would need to almost triple if it were to get back to peak pricing in March of 2021. I mean, it's way down. It went from a value of about 36,000 in March of 2021. These are just arbitrary units, down to about 13,000 today. So, I mean, that's a huge, huge drop off. And that to me, that's great. That means people are buying more than ever, and they're buying it at a third of the price or a half of the price. So people are getting way more bang for their buck when it comes to cards. They're able to enjoy collecting a lot more. And they've purchased through, 3+ years of downward price trends. They've just kept buying and purchasing through it. So in terms of causes, I've heard some people float the idea that this is Fanatics. That Fanatics has introduced all this marketing. They brought in dicks to buy cards. They've introduced the celebrity component to this. They've introduced FanFest. Maybe that's the cause here, is that Fanatics marketing is starting to pay some dividends and has brought more people in. Another hypothesis which was suggested in the chat, which I think is right too, is some of this is Pokemon and TCG. So some of this is just that category. I mean, when you look at the indexes for Charizard and Pikachu and stuff like that, I mean, those guys are up 20, 30, 40, 50%, depending upon if we look back 6 months to a year. So like those categories are doing really well. That a lot of spending is happening there. They're definitely part of it too. And then the final hypothesis I would throw out is the return, what I'm calling the return of the froth monsters, which means we're seeing people come back into sports card collecting right now who were also there at the frothiest of the froth during our bubble during the pandemic. And then they went away for a few years. And now I'm seeing some of those same people come back again with new products or new collecting strategies or showing up new pickups. And we hadn't heard from them in years. So I think them coming back, they definitely have a tendency to throw a lot of money around in a short amount of time and drive up volume and prices.
Yeah, lots there. And you mentioned people coming back. I also wonder, I remember in the heart of the pandemic and the growth of the bubble, we talked about what was going on in the market constantly here on this show, this channel, and others as well. And I remember thinking, and I'm sure I said it out loud several times, that, we are, there's so many more people, so many new people coming into the hobby. And a lot of them are just here with dollar signs in their eyes, and that's fine. But at the end of this bubble, some are going to stick around. Not all. The guys who can't make money here anymore, they'll go on to the next thing, whatever that might be. But a lot of those guys are going to stick around. And I think a lot of them did. Now, whether they are true collectors, however you want to define it, or they are, flippers or just active participants in this ecosystem, I think that's a part of it. You mentioned fanatics and the celebrity thing. I don't know. Like, is that why March set the record? I don't know. Maybe the Fanatics Premier auction was a spectacle in March. It was an amazing auction. I know they did over $10 million that night in one night. I mean, that's only, when you think about it, that's only one platform. Doesn't include eBay and the millions they do every day there too. So I wonder, it's interesting. And we have some comments. So why don't we go through some comments now? Let's hear what the chat has been saying. I only have a few picked out here, but Dan did say it's anecdotal, but Love of the Game auctions tonight has seen very aggressive bidding. I know who was bidding on one. I think Leighton was bidding on some during the show when he was on earlier tonight. Skeppy here says money is flowing out of other markets and it has to go somewhere. For several months, we have been warned of a recession, so it's not surprising or a mystery to what's driving this. So Skeppy seems to have a handle on it, at least. Southern Collector Tony says the wealthiest 10% own 93% of stocks. The bottom 50% of wealth own 1%. I don't care what the stock market does. It doesn't affect my buying. It's a nice position to be in where it doesn't. And I think that also tells me about Southern Collector Tony that, how do I put this? That he's got like his eye on the ball. I want to say he's got a good set. He's got a big set because he's not worried about what's going on with the stock market, because the stock market is an emotional creature. It's up, it's down, it's sideways, it's this way, it's that way. And it's not based on what the companies are doing half the time, if not more than half the time. It's based on the press releases that they put out that are very curated. They're not telling you everything, and it's based on the market, which is an emotional creature, its reaction to the economy, to headlines, to Trump, to tariffs, and all these things. What's going on in the stock market now has nothing to do with what's going on in the companies, except that there's fear that profits will go down because of a decrease in business. And the uncertainty is driving so much of this fear right now. It's a whole other conversation here, I think, but none of this speaks to, if there is uncertainty and there is fear, and it was known, as Skeppy said, for months now, well, a lot of people don't seem to mind what's going on in the uncertainty of the economy right now. And I mean, when Trump was elected, my thoughts were, well, we're in for a great economy for the next 4 years. And then he basically blows the whole world's economy up with signing his name. And I don't know. I kind of wonder what's going on down south of the border. If like what percentage of people that voted for him actually regret that vote right now because he's blowing up their retirement, at least for now. But again, if you go back over time and you look at the history of the indices, you know that you could have invested. If there's been 7 recessions in the history of the North American stock market, if you would have invested 7 times only, and each time it was the night before the market crashed, you're still up. You're still up over time. If you're only 7 times you invested were the worst times of all, you're still up in the long run. That's what my financial advisor has told me about, just kind of sticking with the long horizon and keeping your eye on the ball. So anyway, sorry, I'm kind of going off on a bit of a rant there, but all that said, it's nice to be able to not be impacted by the uncertainty in your mind. It's also nice if you know the sports card industry and the market and the cards long enough that you know that they are a pretty safe place if you do want to. Now, I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'll just know for me, I feel safety in having capital tied up in sports cards. I love it, first of all. And I don't mind it because I know that eventually things are going to turn around. Just like for years now, we're out and about socializing. We're not wearing masks anymore. We're not social distancing. That seems like a weird memory now. Right now, where we are in the history of the world, in the economy, with what's going on, with what Trump has been doing, this is going to be a memory. Eventually, we're going to be like, remember how I should have been buying all this stuff, whether it's stocks or cars. Remember when I should have been putting all my money into something, but we're too fearful. We're too fearful of the uncertainty. You always think it can go down further, and maybe it can and will. But okay, sorry, lots there. Joe, I'm going to stop talking and put it over to you for some thoughts, and back to you, Chris.
You're holding court, and it reminds me that you do have a background in accounting and finances. So I'm appreciative of everything you're saying. What I was struck by what Chris's response was how, and I'll speak personally. I'm a modest eBay seller. And I'm a modest buyer over the last 3 to 5 years. I would corroborate his assertion that cards have progressively, over the last 3 to 5 years, I've had fewer buyers overpay, and as a buyer, I've found the sweet spot of purchase price to be more and more to market comps, which is to say that there's less aberration to what might be considered market value. And I think that's important. I think that is healthy. I think that is something that gives people peace of mind. And a lot of it has to do with information. And I'm not just plugging Card Ladder. There's ways to access information, to extrapolate, even for things that they're not exact comps. People have become very good at this, and there's just not excess expenditures happening in a way that people feel like they're going to lose their behind in any given transaction, as long as they, as our friend Carvin would say, do your research, do your research. So I think that's an evolution in the hobby that bodes well. It doesn't make it the case that people are just going to get rich quick. It's not a get rich quick scheme, but it's more a slow and steady progression in the direction of both collectors and investors, feeling safe in this ecosystem, a word that we've been using lately, and continuing to push in. And I like how you expressed it, Chris, kind of paying through, continuing to move through these times where there's not a slowdown or a reduction or even a fear And maybe as Jay Lee was just saying, and our friend Greg, like maybe this becomes a very compelling way to transfer your assets or to redistribute your own net worth, if you will. And I don't want to get it all about net worth. This is primarily enjoyment for me, but and that's why I think the hobby is such a blessing in my life. Is it can be enjoyment, and it can also be a little bit of a safety net in my own financial world.
It can be financially rewarding, and I see people always say sports cards are not investments, and and they say because I've heard people say they're not investments because they don't pay a dividend. Well, not every stock pays dividends out there either. A lot of investment returns are based on the capital gain versus the income spinoff that a capital asset provides, and a share of a stock is a capital asset. The spinoff income being the dividend, but they don't all spin off that income. Some just don't. You just buy and sell the shares, and that's what a lot of people do to make a lot of money. Now, sports cards can be a store of capital, a store of wealth, a store of value, and they are a store of value. I don't go and buy that Joe Jackson card without thinking long and hard about my overall financial situation, because while I'm putting very little cash into it, I could take all the cards that I'm trading for it, sell them, and put that money in the bank. That's another alternative for me. I wouldn't have done that though without being able to get into a grail like that. It wouldn't have been something that I would have done. So I would have kept the cards for many more years. But point that I'm trying to make is that sports cards can be investments if you want them to be. Obviously, you're going to lose if all you're doing is going into breaks and repacks and gambling on prospects. That's a lot tougher. But if you're buying blue chip sort of pieces, they can become capital asset type investments, because when you do go sell them, you are often going to be able to sell them for more than you paid. And so when I hear people make sweeping statements like sports cards aren't investments, I think, well, you just don't know how to do it, or you've never had a good result from it, because you don't know that they actually can be an investment. They can be a store of capital, and just like was said before, they can be tangible assets. I don't like to look at them that way unless I have to look at them that way. When I have to is when I'm spending significant money to me on a card. I then consider the implications of that financial expenditure on my family and on my retirement funding and all these things. So I know, kind of, again, I'm full of tangents tonight and going off on these discussions, but when people say that they're not investments, I kind of think to myself, well, yeah, I know for me that they have been investments, and they continue to be. And I'm thankful for that, because I get so much enjoyment out of my cards. The fact that they can also provide me some financial security down the road, unless the world goes into complete mayhem and it's martial law and all this stuff goes on where I need to burn them for heat. That's a whole other thing, right? But at the end of the day, you can make long-term, you can earn long-term gains. Look at everybody who bought a 52 Topps Mickey Mantle in history. Look at everybody who's ever bought a T206 Honus Wagner. No one's ever lost money on that. Now, I know these are very unique circumstances, but look at anyone who bought an Alexander Ovechkin Young Guns at pretty much any point in the last 20 years. They are going to make. I sold a PSA 10 Alexander Ovechkin Young Guns to an ex-girlfriend of mine, like a way long-term ex-girlfriend, for her son. Her son liked hockey. She reached out to me. She said, hey, I know you're into cards. I remember when we were together, you were into cards. I want to get something for my son, Leo. I said, okay, well, here's what I sold her for her son for his birthday, a PSA 10 Ovechkin Young Guns for, I think, $200. Well, I just helped. So I called her up. I said, hey, listen, that card I sold you, now might be the time to sell it, because he's about to break the record. So I helped her sell it, and she just got over $5,000 into her kid's bank account from a $200 expenditure, investment, I don't know, but to her and her kid, that was an investment that paid off. So it really it comes down to how you look at it. If you are, if you're the collector who's filling up your flagship set every year, you're working on your player run, you're not spending significant money on a card that is significant to you, doesn't have to be an investment. It can just be pure enjoyment of owning the cardboard. But again, for me, when I'm putting significant money, I consider the financial implications, and whether you want to call that an investment or not, I don't know. But it's worked out well. It's worked out well for me in my 45 years of being in the hobby from a financial, like the financial rewards have been pretty good. And I'm sure they have been for lots of people. So it's hard for me to when I hear the people say they're not investments, I don't really retort. I kind of think to myself, well, they just don't know how to do it, or the cards they're buying aren't really investable. So what's going through your mind, Chris?
Yeah, it's a great rant. That's why I've thought this topic might get the juices flowing, and it did. And I really find it interesting when collectors talk at length and passionately about how they perceive the market and the financial dimension of collecting cards. I think it's really interesting, and I think a lot of people have a lot of different approaches. Usually the concession that I'll make to somebody who will raise the point that sports cards don't pay a dividend, they're not a revenue generating asset, so they maybe don't fall into the technical definition of investment, at least not the definition that maybe some more sophisticated finance types use. I'll concede to them that it's a speculation, because I think that's really the bucket that they want to put sports cards into, is that they're speculative. And I think like some people do that because they think it's negative, or it's a negative connotation. It's a pejorative. And I think some people do it because they don't want sports cards coming into the very proper category of investing. And I think that's okay. I really do get where they're coming from. And then there's also other motives, like people don't really want sports cards to be driven by investing, because if the point of sports cards is to buy them for one price and sell them for a higher price, that really can impede the amount of fun somebody can have collecting, because a collector wants prices to be as low as possible. So if they can get rid of the investing mentality in order to serve the goal of keeping prices as low as possible in order to build the best collections, I get where they're coming from. But I don't even think calling it speculative is super negative. It's not as negative as I think maybe some people want it to be. Because what does it mean for collecting cards to be speculative? It just means that that this is very sentiment driven. That the idea is that we're sort of making predictions about how much more in the future people will be willing to pay for something based strictly on the desire to own it. And the reason why I don't find that to be such a discouraging feature of cards is because I can personally attest to how much my desire to own cards increases as time goes on, for no reason other than I really want to make a really great collection. So I get all sides, I think, of where people are coming from, and there's a gray area there. Let me say two other things.
Can I? Because you have notes, and I know you won't forget. I just wanted, you mentioned this the speculative piece. So maybe they're speculative, and they don't put out a dividend, so they're not, a traditional investment like a corporate stock sort of thing. The speculation side, I think, is completely true. Paul Skeens, that's a speculative investment. Wemby, speculative investments. But Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan, Mickey Mantle, Wayne Gretzky, Jackie Robinson, I don't know how speculative those are, right? Relative. So you get all kind of, you get both gamuts of it there. The other thing when it comes to the dividend that I want to mention, and again, Greg at Midlife steals my thunder, because we're just thinking the exact same things tonight, but he said gold doesn't pay a dividend. It's been a safe haven for hundreds of years. So comparing sports cards to a stock in a company is not the right comparison to an investment. I think a better comparison is to gold. Now, gold has utility, but what is gold really used for? Well, some electronic stuff, fillings, no fillings in your mouth. You can't do that with cards, but cards bring us the enjoyment factor that you are just really digging into there, Chris, which is a benefit. It is something that brings value. So just wanted to make those points, but if you don't mind, either respond to that and go back to your notes, please.
Yeah, I mean, the magic of card collecting and the fuel of the markets, even if we don't sort of like grasp this on the surface level, but it's operating a couple levels beneath, is that it's the rich, complex history of how cards and sets and players all relate to each other and form a hierarchy. And we can zoom in on smaller hierarchies, or we can zoom out and look at the totality of the hierarchy of every card ever made. But these cards all relate to each other. And that relationship creates true meaning. And then we can engage with that meaning and interpret that meaning and use the way that we engage with meaning to creatively express ourselves through the collections that we build, whether we make them public or whether we keep them private. These are expressions. There's creativity involved here. There's personality. There's sentimentality. I mean, these are the real fuels that get thrown onto the fire of collecting that inflame the passions, but it all comes back to the relationship that cards have to each other. That's what permits card collecting to have meaning, is that we have sets, we have history, we have tradition. The relationships between the cards is what gives rise to the pleasure, leisure activity of collecting. And that activity of collecting, that mental challenge, that mental process, that mental enjoyment is, in my opinion, the primary source of value in card. And it's why cards, we continue to gravitate back to them, so that's going to tie into one of my 2 points that I had waiting in the queue here. So the first one is that I just want to say my opinion, which I don't inject when I try to objectively review data, but my opinion as a collector is that I really like low prices and high volume. I like that mix. And I see it as a compromise. I like lower prices because that helps me hopefully get closer to the best cards that I feel are the best to best enhance my collection. But I like high volume too. That's my concession, because high volume means there's lots of other people out there like me whose life is definitely made better by the fact that they get to participate in collecting cards. You know, it's almost been 10 years since I returned to collecting cards, so it becomes more difficult to remember what my life was like pre-return to the hobby. But I do remember, and it was far less enjoyable. The incremental value, even just when I wake up in the morning and I just look at my phone and I'm groggy, I have a real mission every morning that I wake up. I can go check my chats and that I'm having with collector friends from all over the world. But really more often, I'm going to eBay, I'm going to marketplaces, I'm looking at sales histories, I'm looking at the checklist of cards that I want to complete. And I'm just participating in these collecting activities that just bring me nothing but joy. And so when the volume is high, to me, that says there's a lot of other people out there who are getting to have fun collecting too. And if I can have like lots of people having fun, that's great. And if we can all do it in a lower priced environment where we all have better chance to collect the best cards we want to collect, then I think we're doing something right for sure. And then the final point I'll make, and this is the other side of the coin. When our industry really gains momentum, like it has right now, I get concerned because we've all seen the tendency that, you know, I don't want to be too nasty or negative here, but market manipulation, people coming into this space and just buying up quantity of high population cards or of iconic cards that are in lower population, but they're well known. People come in and they sweep the floor and they buy it all up, and they have the intention of driving up prices so that they can sell it off in a couple of months and create this speculative run up in prices that can enrich themselves, but that totally distorts our markets. And then collectors have to just sit on the sidelines and wait for this whole game to play itself out again before we can reasonably enter and start collecting these cards again, because the market for them has been distorted by people who don't want to collect them, but who just want to drive up the price on them and create a FOMO environment so that people get nervous and antsy and like, oh, I better get this now. And eventually the game of musical chairs stops. People get stuck holding the bag. And the rest of us are just sitting on the sidelines waiting until we can enjoy collecting again. So that's the concern I have, the caution I have, is that when we have this momentum and when we have this environment, it can get really sketchy really fast because those froth monsters come back into the market and they drive things up for self-enrichment, and then boom, they're gone again until they come back in 3 or 4 years and do the same thing all over again.
Yeah. Wow. Great comments, man. And you know, we're not regulated. So, you know, you talk about the pump and dump pretty much is what you're getting at there. And you can, you know, I guess you can pump and dump stocks too. That's happened in history as well. But we don't have the regulation. So we have to regulate ourselves as each individual participant, and to protect ourselves from what you're talking about, this market manipulation that does go on. And it goes on in corporate America too. I mean, managers of companies are incentivized by bonuses, and they get bonuses for hitting certain benchmarks. And they have bias. You know, as a former auditor of corporate financial statements, you are trained to be professionally skeptical about everything you're seeing, everything that the management is telling you, because they have reasons to overstate revenue or profits or whatever the metric is that's driving their bonus. That's why you always get to, as auditors, you get to look at the bonus plans. What are their bonuses driven by? And so anyway, there's manipulation in all of these markets. As we know, where there's money, there's going to be manipulation, there's going to be fraud, etc. We're not regulated. We have to therefore regulate ourselves. And you make a great point. You say they're coming in, they're buying up all these high population cards, whether it's PSA 10 Mike Trouts or the Zions back there, the Lucas, whatever it is. And this is a reason why, if people ask me for my advice, I say these are things I stay away from, the easily manipulated items. And so then, Chris, I think to myself, well, and that's why I like to buy cards that are either, you know, low population or low print run, or a combination. And then I think to myself, though, Chris, well, yeah, but that's not immune either. It's not immune either. All it takes is one big whale with a bunch of money to come in and start buying up all the PMGs and jambalayas and rubies and all these things to push a market forward and hype it up. And that might not actually properly represent what's going on to the, you know, in the actual market. It could be manipulation, but I think that's a safer place than just going out there and sweeping up all these high pop cards of, you know, modern stuff. Mostly, I think, is where it's you know, really primed for it. So there was a comment here. Someone made a comment about like 1,000 Jackie Robinson. Oh, Dan here says the guy who owned about 100 Jackie Lee cards comes to mind. Interesting. That's a card you would think would be somewhat immune, but there are, you know, I have the stat right here. Known slab Jackie Robinson, 2,602, the week before the last premier auction when I was looking at all these iconic cards. 2,602. One guy had 100 of them. It's a huge chunk of the market right there. That is enough to do some, to impact the overall market. Never mind someone who owns, I don't know, half of a print run of 10 of a very important card, that sort of thing. So back to not regulated. We have to regulate ourselves, and we have to buy in areas that you feel you have an advantage or an edge because you've been watching it for a long. It comes down to experience, I think, in a lot of cases, and having been watching these markets for years or decades, so that you can feel when something is awry, if you will. I'll stop there. It's been a while since we heard from my good friend Joe. Joe, I'm going to ask you what's going through your mind on all this stuff lately.
So the image I have is decoder ring. And it goes all the way back to what Hoge was saying, that, you know, he feels more equipped to interpret what's going on in the card world than necessarily the stock world, the investment world at large. The decoder ring that I return to, and again, I mean, Hoge has actually been my counsel in moments when I've experienced FOMO and wanted to get in on something like Tyrese Halliburton about 14 months ago comes to mind. And it's again, what he was saying, it's like, sometimes it's good to just step off the field, be on the sidelines for a while. There's no, like, cool down, take a deep breath. But the decoder ring that I return to is every card, for it to truly have value, needs a home and a collector that wants that card in their collection. And it doesn't mean it's their collection forever, but it means that an acquisition is not just a moment of transition where that card's going to go right back out the door. So when I assess card values and I assess my own interest in a card, I try to think, how many of these cards belong or are desired by collectors wanting to have it in their home, wanting to have it in their collection? And that becomes, along with the price, the comps, that becomes part of my own decoder ring for whether or not market value at that moment makes any sense. Because frequently it doesn't make sense. And then occasionally, and these are the moments I live for as a collector, it makes so much sense at the price that it's at, that it's just a no-brainer. And you just smash that bin or make that bid. You might even make it in your own way a mega bid to secure that card, because you're confident that the value, both for yourself and in the larger market, makes all the sense in the world.
It has to, right? When we're spending money, it kind of has to make sense in a lot of ways. And I love it. I love it like you do, Joe, when it really does make sense. Yeah, because there's, I think you said something there, Joe, about when you started by saying, there has to be a home for every card, a collection for every card, which gets my mind thinking about my own collection. And when you are first, I don't want to say when you're first in the hobby, but when you are either you're first in the hobby or you discover a new product you love, or maybe you're going to start, maybe you went to your first football game. Now you're collecting football. Maybe that was an Indianapolis Colts game. So now you're a Colts collector, and the whole world, that segment of the hobby is opened up for you. And you just kind of go crazy buying everything you can, because you don't maybe know exactly what the preferred products are. You might not know the lineage of certain brands and how they might perform in the future from a financial perspective. So you're buying all these different things, and you're accumulating a collection of cards that you're the home for them at that time. But as time goes by and you have more experience, you've been exposed to more cards, more collectors, more advice, more content. So you're seeing other potential approaches that might make sense to you. And you think to yourself, oh, you know what? Okay, I've got 150 Peyton Manning Colts cards, just totally random, 150 Peyton Manning Colts cards, or whoever their quarterback is now, or use the Packers. It's easier. You're collecting Favre, then Rodgers. Now you're collecting Jordan Love, sort of thing, and you realize, you know what? I don't necessarily need to have 100 Jordan Love cards in my collection. I'm probably good with 3 or 4 to represent him, because I've got 100 and I see something else I like, or maybe I got to pay some bills, whatever it might be. So I'm going to shrink that collection down to my favorite, whatever, 3, 5, 10, 20, whatever percentage of the starting stock that you have. And now you're going to get out of those cards. My point is that there are homes for cards that are with collectors. It's all temporary anyway. What's that span of temporariness though? Is it less than a year? Is it 5, 10, 15, 25 years? What is that span? And so even though there are homes for cards, there needs to be a future home for these cards as well, especially, and it's going to be hard to find that next home for some when they're just not as desirable as when they maybe first came out and it was the hot product type of thing. So I agree with what you're saying, Joe. There needs to be a home for these cards. I know Chris has made that comment several times. I've heard him say this, whether public platforms or, privately. And it's something that does sort of stick with me, because you want to, if you are investing in a card, you want to know that there's going to be someone who's going to want to own it as much as you want to down the road as well. And that's where, coming back to that, we're unregulated. There's all sorts of opportunity for the hankus pankus here in this hobby, and the pump and dump, the market manipulation, all the fraud, all these things. And the only way to avoid a lot of that is through experience. And if you don't have that, it's through asking for advice from people who you trust to help you minimize your losses, if you will, minimize the mistakes that you might make, and not just financial losses. I mean, you could buy a card right now that someone who's really experienced would say, don't buy that card, but you want to buy it because it's what you see. It's that pretty shiny penny right now. Okay, so maybe you lose a few bucks, who cares? But really, you could have taken that money from your budget and bought a card that you would love for a longer time, if it's something that you would have been open to. So, Chris, you want to wrap this one up, and we'll wrap up this whole show.
Yeah, sure. The end user of it all is super important. And the only thing I was reflecting on as I was listening to both you and Joe talk about the end user and the importance of it, is that I used to hear a lot more about the importance of the end user 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago than I have in the last few years.
You got repackers there to take your cards from you, so we don't.
We don't need an end user when we have infinite repeat users.
Right. Exactly. Rinse and recycle.
Yeah. So that's I think that's a great note to end on. It's just, I try to only collect cards for which I'm the end user, or at least I think I'm the end user, until, my sentiments change and something different or better comes along. But
which you're allowed to. We are allowed to change our mind on things, right? It's our prerogative, And so, but hopefully you made good decisions along the way. If this is significant money to you that you're deploying into this hobby, you want to, I don't know. I'm not all about putting thousands of dollars a year into cardboard just to write it off as an expense at the end of the day. Some I do have a portion of my collection that I know I'm never going to recover the money on. And I love those cards as much as I love cards that I think are worth thousands of dollars. I love them all. So it really, but that's diversity. That's diversification within my own collection. And I think diversification is important. If you are collecting and you only have cards of one player, I mean, that's a tough. Listen, I'm not judging it. You do you, but especially if that's a brand new player who's going to change teams, then you got to sell your whole collection because you're loyal to the team and not the player. That could be a problem. Diversity in a collection isn't. I want to say it's a nice thing. It's a good thing, but that really comes down to who you are as a collector and how you collect and approach. So I'm not going to push that on anybody. It's how I like to have a diverse collection, because I love so many cards from so many sports, eras, genres. So, Chris, well, hey man, listen, this was a fun episode. We talked a lot about, community card show, the vintage trade night at Strongsville, adapting to a changing landscape with Rich Klein. Leighton joined the conversation as he does. Grant talked about, being a big time hockey dealer. This was fun. But we finished off strong here, Chris. Strong because, like you said, you're getting us into rants, which is fun, and it's a fun topic. So, thanks for bringing it tonight.
Yeah, great show as usual.
And the chat, I want to thank the chat for tonight as always. Great comments, and I couldn't get to many recently, but great stuff. Yeah, Colin Murray says Probstein has his share of Jordan PSA 10s. Yeah, I mean, he's not doing that for hobby. That's an investment. In his mind, that's an investment. No doubt about it. Joe, any final comments here before we wrap up? And this is the wrap-up portion of the show, guys. So to the chat, thank you for being here. Thank you to all the guests we had on tonight. I want to thank Dan for coming on too. Says so proud to have been a part of it. Dan, it was great to have you along with all the guests as always. I want to thank Joe. I want to thank Chris, and I want to thank the chat one more time. But final comments to the panel, and then we're going to wrap it up. Let's start with you, Chris, for your just again, if you have anything else to say.
I don't. Great show. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. Joe?
Yeah, I appreciate all the guests. I just a special shout out to Rich Klein, just because he knew the very first card shop dealer that I interacted with. That was really cool, because I never have met anyone in the last 30 years that happens to know that person. So that was cool on a personal level. And then Hoj, just, what you bring, at the close here, shutting us down, really provocative topic. And what goes through my mind with what you were saying, Jay Lee, about, things change and collectors and like the cycles that we all go through. It just has me thinking that one of the really cool things about collecting is that we're all, hopefully, but I believe to be true, evolving all the time. And so we're not static, and at any given moment we may have a different perspective. And that's, I think, a corollary with life and existence on the planet. That's makes collecting almost kind of a metaphor for, our life journeys. Like if you're not growing, what are you doing? So anyway, that's where this conversation leaves me, and very invigorating. And it's not over. Let's continue the dialogue.
Definitely, as we will. I want to thank you, Nuba, for joining the show. Bob Boozle, saw you in the chat. Have a good sleep on the couch tonight. Foul Ball, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed having Uncle Rich Klein on the show with us tonight, as I know I did, and I think the audience did as well. So, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Remember, these episodes are available on podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave that rating, review, hit the like button on your way out tonight, guys. Greatly appreciate it. And that's going to be it. Again, no episode next Saturday. I will be taking the night off, as will Joe and Chris as well. Guys, with that, this episode of Sports Cards Live for April the 5th, 2025 is now
over.
And it is over. Good night, everybody.